if it's even gonna fucking play. You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. This literally worked like 10 seconds ago. Right. Hello! Hello! New shortened intro, so you're not waiting 2 minutes to start. I knew this is a bad idea to have Skype chat up. I'm going to start laughing the whole way through. Right. Hello and welcome to the Run Hot or Die podcast. I am Ever as your host, Runs with Fire, otherwise known as Runs. With me I have my co-host JC. Say hello, JC.
Hello.
Hello. This week on the panel we have the Magician.
Hello.
And we have that most eminent of MWO live streamers, the wonderful Dale, also from Steel Jaguars.
Hello.
Hello. How is everyone this week? You all good?
Yep.
Bloody marvellous.
Absolutely bloody marvellous.
Mm.
Outstanding. Right, well, this week we have got a couple of items we're going to look at. Obviously, we've had a few changes. We've had 2 weeks' worth of stuff to catch up on because we didn't do a podcast last week. So we'll be covering the introduction of the 8v8 matchmaking return, speculation on some of the next patch articles that are due to drop, and our main topics we're going to be covering are ECM and ECM team tactics. And of course, we will have some news on the Run Hot or Die League. So I'm just going to kick us off with something a little bit different, though, which I didn't put on our production notes. However, I know the December the 13th incident, as it's been called. Now, I'm only going to mention this very quickly because obviously for those who weren't aware, there was a little bit of malware apparently on the MWO forum. Now PGI has fixed it, so they say, and if I bring up the post because I've lost it, basically I shall read out the statement from PGI. Basically that they discovered a vulnerability in their forum software which allowed malicious redirect script to be injected. This has of course been discovered and removed. PGI would just like to confirm that at no time were any databases containing personal information compromised. This includes emails or passwords, and PGI or IGP does not store nor have access to any user credit card information. However, it is worthwhile, guys, just to make sure that your antivirus is up to date, and to make sure that you do run your antivirus regularly. Just your friendly safety announcement from the Run Hot or Die team here. Okay, first bit of news: Vanity items and the new Christmas Vanity items. Has anyone brought any? I want to know, yes. Do you have a Christmas tree in your mech?
I think Dale has everything.
I have everything.
So, man to ask. All I have webs.
What have you got, Dale? Tell us.
I have the Snowman Awesome, the Santless, the Elf, the Christmas tree, the Lump of Coal. They released it. I have it right now.
So your cockpit's like Santa's grotto, basically.
Essentially, yes. Yeah, anytime they release limited edition stuff, especially for the holidays, I'm a sucker for it.
Well,
cool.
Of course, we all know that any cockpit editions make you a better pilot. So that's clearly why you're doing so well on your streams.
The wreath that I have over in the corner, it helps out tremendously on keeping my aim steady. You'd be surprised. It's just that little bit of extra weight in the side of the cockpit helps keep it steadier.
It's holiday cheer. That's what it is.
Yeah, see, but I'm waiting for the NOS bumper sticker because that'll make it go much faster. So, yeah.
Go faster,
Holding out.
Stripes.
I want to know who bought a lump of coal.
I
Yeah,
did.
I was so
Wow.
I was so seriously considering it just as a troll item.
I wish you could send it to
it-
somebody.
Yeah, if you
If you
could,
need gifting.
or if you could gift it, I would so do that in a heartbeat.
What they should do is they should do like you should be able to have like a photo of like a kill shot, and that you can just frame it and put it in your mech. That'd be hilarious.
Don't I
And
nearly?
then send it to the person that you killed.
I very nearly coughed my tea up over the screen then. Oh yes, holiday Christmas vanity items. Now, what's your feeling on this, guys? Is this were they a little bit expensive for your taste? Obviously not for Dale because he's a student and has tons of spare cash, doesn't pay tax. Bloody lefty student. But what do you reckon on these? Do you think they're a little bit expensive? Do you think they were priced right?
Oh, whenever
I
you're
think they're
looking at
right.
Oh, sorry, go Dale first.
sorry, they're about right where they should be, I believe. People were complaining, 1,250 MC for Christmas lights. It's a tad more expensive than you're used to in other free-to-play games, but whenever you're looking at Mechwarrior Online, you're looking at they're making their money off of MC purchases with camo specs, which are much cheaper than that. I think it's 250 each. They're making money off of MC purchases with mechs. It's about in the right price range for what they've set compared to their other prices.
JC, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people feeling unhappy about the pricing. I don't know why. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't, it has no bearing on the actual mechanics of the game. If people want to spend a bit of MC on that kind of stuff, happy days. Like, you don't have to buy it. I don't feel like it was overpriced because, at the end of the day, it's take it or leave it. No one's forcing you to buy it. And if you do want to buy it, then I kind of feel like the price was about right for making PGI some pocket change.
I mean, I don't know. I just think from a business standpoint, PGI, and this is a whole nother rant which I don't want to get into. I just think from a business viewpoint, PGI would perhaps make more money if they dropped the price a little bit because it would encourage people to buy more stuff.
Well, I don't think they've gone the microtransaction route, that's for sure. I mean, you can't buy stuff for pennies or a couple of dollars. I mean, some of the stuff's expensive. I mean, if you look at the price of some of the hero mechs, it's expensive. But I think at the end of the day, I think their model. Well, first of all, look at the founders packs. I mean, that was some expensive stuff, right? But look how many they sold. Look how much money they made.
I absolutely liked. I was quite happy with the price of the founders pack. I didn't have a problem with that at all. And I quite happily spent my money on that. I just think some of the vanity items that they're trying to sell and some of the hero mechs are a little bit expensive. And I mean, obviously it's PGI's game. They can pay whatever they can charge whatever they want. That's down to them. But I just think for their own self-interest, they would do better to drop the price on some of these things. I think they would genuinely sell more in the long run. But, hey, that's just my opinion.
Well, I guess there's two things. First of all, they can always drop the prices in the future, right? So if they come in too low, then it's more difficult for them to push the prices up. But secondly, we don't know how successful it's been. I mean, they could have been selling them like hotcakes, or they could have made nothing. But it gives them data which they can look at and say, okay, this stuff probably was overpriced, and we need to price differently in the future. Or, if it was selling really well, maybe they'll make it more expensive. Who knows?
That's true. Anyway, I'm not going to get down the whole PGI pricing point thing. There's been a couple of posts on that on the forums and everything else. But it's just interesting. I personally like the addition of Christmas Vanity. I'm a big fan of any game vanity items. I spend far too much money on digital crap I can't actually own. But, I I just thought it was a neat addition ahead of Christmas, you know. Okay, well, this week, or the other week actually, we saw the reintroduction of the 8v8 matchmaking back into MWO, and this is phase 2 of PGI's new planned matchmaking system. Guys, how's it been working for you? Have you had a good experience with it so far? How well have you find the teams matching up? Magician, what do you think so far?
Well, it's definitely much better than playing with just a group of 4. I'm enjoying it a lot. We've been able to work with the team. I think everyone has the same general problems with it, though, in that you get this mix of, well, one, you get a mix of skill level, but 2, you get a mix of what tonnage another team's going. The way the game works right now, some teams will go much more for a camping style with a lot of big mechs. Other teams really just want to play a diverse set of mechs. So I think it's a good idea, the announcement that there will be some type of a weight system put in with phase 3 to solve some of these problems. But I think for the purposes of the game, purposes of competition, it's much improved right now. It's nice, you know, no longer you drop in your 8 people against 8 pugs, because that was no fun. And so it's neat seeing which teams are playing and actually running into different teams that are part of the RunHotorDie League and getting good games against them. And we didn't really have that as much before, because a lot of times you drop these 8, you drop against pugs.
JC, how have you been finding it? How's Wolf Spider's been experiencing the matchmaking so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a mixed bag, and I guess some of this ties into ECM, but I won't kind of touch on that yet. But I mean, we've been on some nights and there's no one playing. There's like one team, and you just get them over and over and over and over again. So I mean, I don't know if that's indicative of generally people are feeling unhappy with it. I certainly feel like it was really easy for a lot of teams to turn up with expectations derived from where 8v8 was previously, and that is Roffle pub stomping. And a lot of teams just kind of turned up and got rickrolled by some of the cheesier builds, that because of the lack of weight restrictions, and a lot of people didn't like it, I guess. But I mean, that's not going to last forever. I think it's you know, if you got 2 teams that want to play, you know, within the kind of remit of what you enjoy, then it can be really good. But, you know, there's no way to determine that. The team can take whatever they want. But it does, you know, produce some really interesting matches, and you get to see how other people are using ECM. Yeah, it's been pretty good. I've enjoyed it.
I mean, I think probably you're experiencing one of the problems that I've experienced is that we're playing on the EU time zone.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not as many teams playing on the EU side of things. That's just a fact. You know, that's the way it is. And I certainly think that a lot of the North American teams have found a lot more use for it than some of the EU teams at the minute. You know, but hopefully that will improve in time, and you know, that's just a gradual thing. Now, Dale, obviously I've had the pleasure to join you on a couple of 8v8 drops. How have you been finding it so far?
I think just reflecting sentiments already said, it's definitely nice being able to drop as an 8-man, being able to coordinate again, having a dedicated drop command, you know, calling out shots. I've been sorely missed for the past, it's been a month. But other than that, yeah, you're running into the weird builds, and where you're seeing like 6 atlases, 7 atlases rushing a base. You're seeing just swarms of lights against, you know, what you normally consider a balanced drop deck. You're looking at a 2-2-2-2 setup, but it's been sorely missed, and it's nice having it back. You know, I think a weight restriction with phase 3 is definitely going to be a good way to go. But you know, in its current state, it works for getting 8-mans together and practicing again. And I do think that one of the main issues with not finding teams is that a lot of people, I think, probably got turned off from it as soon as they popped up, because they were used to the old 8v8s, well, 8v pug. And you know, as soon as they started facing people who were coordinating as well as they were, or if not better, they just got turned off and went back to groups of 4.
But I mean, does that not mean, to a certain extent, that the new style 8v8 matchmaking is separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak? And I don't mean that to be derogatory, but you know, you have some of the more competitive teams on there taking mixed drop decks with highly efficient, well-built mechs versus you know, some of the guys that are on the beta public TeamSpeak or some of the more casual teams. You know, are we going to see this separation where 8v8 is going to be used pretty much by most of the competitive teams, and all the casual teams are going to go back to that 4v4 matchup? Magician, what do you think on it?
Well, I first just want to add that one of the things that I find with these 8v8s is how serious do you want to take them? Because you can wear yourself out really fast doing 8v8s intense all the time. Coordinating, make sure everyone's taking the best mechs possible, all that stuff. So you don't know when you're going to run into a team that's highly coordinated and playing to win, or they're just kind of out there just playing as a part of their grind, just doing an 8v8. And from my side, I get pretty worn out with the 8v8. Versus 4v4, you can play for hours on end, but when you're doing the 8s, it's like sometimes you're doing a little check, like, I don't know if I want to play right now because I don't really feel like taking the game that seriously. So I do think it will separate the teams and the players that want to play more seriously from the ones who don't. However, I also think that when they add this rating system with Phase 3, that'll do its own thing and allow people who don't want to play it as seriously to play other teams who either aren't as good or aren't playing it as coordinated of drops.
Dale, what about you? Tonnage or tonnage limits or battle points values or, you know, match mech chassis, are these the way that's perhaps going to bring the 8v8 to a more balanced standard there? You know, because it is quite unbalanced at the minute in some respects.
Definitely. I think especially as soon as Phase 3 hits, which I think they were saying January, hopefully, fingers crossed. But as soon as we can get whatever modified ELO system they're using, as soon as you factor in skill level into the matchmaking, tonnage weights I think will help for general balance, but as soon as you factor in the skill level, you're going to see people enjoying them more, and because you're getting more balanced matches, because theoretically right now you can run a team of 8 that has been in since the very first closed beta invite wave versus a team of 8 friends that just installed the game today. And that imbalance is, I think, another major issue. Not just the tonnage imbalance, but also the skill level and knowledge of the game imbalance is really factoring into 8v8s having issues right now.
Now, do we have any idea how the matchmaking system is going to affect community warfare yet? Have you guys had any ideas about that? JC, what about you? Do you have any ideas?
Well, I mean, there's so little been said really about community warfare. I'm not really sure how this is going to sort of factor in. I don't believe Phase 3 is going to be like what we'll see being used for community warfare. I think it will act as a sort of foundation. Like, I feel like Phase 2 is a real sort of transition period as we move into Phase 3, and then I'm pretty sure one of the devs said that after Phase 3 was implemented, there would be a way to challenge other units. I mean, I feel like you need that first before you can do community warfare, because if you're going to attack specific targets, you're going to be playing specific people, certainly if they're Merc Corps, you know. So maybe Phase 3 will work more into the hands of, say, faction warfare, with the factions like the Innisphere houses, because there'll be more people just randomly playing. I'm not really sure, but I think the only thing that we do know, which isn't maybe relevant to community warfare per se, but how the ELO system would rank, and that is that it would look at individual pilots' statistics, and that all the pilots in a team would be rated based on those individual statistics, and that's how you'd get matched. This is what I've heard on the sort of people talking about. I don't know if it's true or not.
I mean, that's not a bad system to have, actually. It's one that's been used by several sort of MMO games. I believe World of Warcraft uses a similar system for its rated battleground system. So, I mean, Magician, what do you think? Do you think it's going to factor into community warfare, or do you think that they're going to have to separate out the two systems?
I think it's going to factor in community warfare, but I'm not sure how they're going to do it. If, as John's saying, there's not that many teams that they're running into at certain times. So how's that going to work community warfare if you got multiple fronts of attacks? If it's anything like what MPBT 3025 was, is that you had multiple planets that you could attack and at a time, like each faction. So you would have to have enough teams that are doing 8 on each of those, or else people are going to sit there and queue hell and obviously not be playing. So I'm not, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they got to do it somehow, because if it just comes down to 8s playing pugs in community warfare, that's not much fun either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, well, in other news, we obviously didn't have a patch on the 11th of December. PGI did put out a post in the forums about that. And one of the reasons why is they said they're planning a bit of a big update, and there's going to be a new map mode, or game mode rather, and there's going to be some changes to the ballistics systems. Well, first up, ballistics. What would we like to see in terms of changes to ballistics? JC, what would you really like to see for ballistics at the minute?
I think, well, first of all, the velocity changes on the on like rounds. I think that's a really good start, and all of them are getting a buff apart from the AC2, which is perfectly fine at 2,000 meters per second. One thing that maybe could be looked at is buffing both the AC20 and the AC10. Maybe, don't know. Like, I'd be on the fence about that, but something that I wouldn't mind them exploring. Certainly, it would be a nice counter to the Gauss rifles. If there was sort of a small buff in terms of damage, or some other sort of viable effect for those weapons in close.
So, Dale, I mean, you're a big gauze user on a lot of your mechs. In fact, you're quite well known for using the gauze and the gauze pult to a certain extent. What would you like to see in terms of changes to other ballistic weapons, and do you think that those changes might encourage you to perhaps explore some of the different ballistic weapons a bit further?
I think they're hitting the nail on the head really with the velocity changes. As soon as you don't have to lead the target as much, as soon as you can, especially with the AC20, being able to pack such a big punch in close range, but having to still lead the target significantly around, even when you're in your optimum 450 meter range. It's buffing the velocity on that definitely will help with that. I also think possibly lowering the heat a little bit on some of the ballistic weapons. I understand, it's all part of the greater balancing system, but at the same time, it just feels like, especially if you're running an AC20 as opposed to a Gauss rifle, pretty similar in terms of crit slots, in terms of weight. But you're getting less ammo per ton. You're also getting the risk of ammo exploding per ton, so you need something else to balance that in, and I think hitting the heat a little bit might be a good way to go.
What about you, Magician? Are you looking forward to some of these changes? And how do you feel about server-side firing as well? Do you think that could be a valid thing for them PGI to actually look at?
I'm sure they've looked at that already as part of the way they've done their netcode. I mean, they talk about redoing their netcode completely, so I don't know, if they're going to make changes like that that'll make things work better. But that's not really what causes. I don't think the speed of the ballistics is going to change that much. I don't have a problem with hitting with the ballistics as it is. The main problem is that they are very heavy and they don't do all that much damage and they create heat. So the AC20, for example, unless you get really up close on a Gauss, say you had a 2 AC20 catapult versus a 2 Gauss catapult, you'd have to engage at first time around the 250 mark with the AC20 to consistently win that matchup. And that's not quite fair, I think, to brawling. I think the biggest thing to make ballistics more useful, especially the AC20 and the LBX, is you have to allow people to choose their mechs when they know what map they're going to take. For example, on River City, you would see people take a lot more AC20s because you could use them more effectively than Gauss. But because you don't know what map you're going to take, especially when they have this desert map, which is supposed to be 4 times bigger than the other maps, you're going to want to take the Gauss rifle because you're going to want the most versatile weapons. So one of the ways that you balance weapons and you make them useful is by creating maps and settings that make these weapons more useful than some other weapons. For example, if you had a really cold map, ERPPCs would suddenly might outdo Gauss. And if you have a really hot map, you might not be able to run lasers at all, so people are going to run on ballistics. That's one of the ways that Mechwarrior 4 worked, and that's why you would switch your weapons and take completely different kinds of configs based on what maps you take. So I think they're jumping the gun a little bit. No, I don't want to say jumping the gun, but they have to start considering that the way to make weapons work is to make them based on what kind of maps are being played, and let players choose their mechs and their configs once they know what maps are coming up.
See, now that's a good idea, and it's one I'm certainly in favour of. I think you absolutely should be able to pick your mech knowing what map you're going to drop in. But I've actually seen a lot of opposition to that in the forums. Some people saying that it would make the competitive use of the hyper-efficient mechs far worse, and make that a much worse situation for a lot of the pug players who aren't perhaps going to be prepared for that kind of drop. Do you think that's a fair criticism? JC, what do you think on it?
Well, one thing I was just thinking was I remember reading, and I can't remember where it was, but I'm like 99% sure this was said. One of the developers was kind of discussing with other people in the community about this subject, about knowing, should you ever know what exact map is going to be in the rotation? And I know it's something that they talked about internally, and certainly from the community warfare perspective, one thing they did say is about that planets would be like different types of planets. So, urban planets and, desert planets. And what they were saying is that you could kind of guess what kind of maps you were going to get based on the planet you attacked. A little bit like how MBT used to work. There would be different classes of planets, and there would be a certain percentage on what types of maps you get. So if you dropped on a planet which was deemed as like an urban industrial planet, then there would be like a 75% chance that the map rotation would give you a city type map. But there would be a small percentage that you'd get a map that was more long range. So that could be a good option in not showing people, say, the exact map, but giving people a good idea. Because I feel like they're always trying to sort of balance that people aren't always taking the best setups, right? They're trying to force people to not just be, min-max every little thing. Certainly that's what I feel like they've tried to do. And so if you give people the option to see the maps, then people can obviously plan and bring the maximized setup. Now, do I personally have a problem with it? No. If I could see what map was coming, then fantastic, because I'll just take the perfect mech for that map. But I can appreciate why, for the wider game, not just the competitive players, but just the wider game, why they wouldn't want to show you what map's coming. But it's an interesting subject. I'll be interested to see how they kind of deal with it.
Dale, I mean, where do you stand on this? Do you think you should be able to see the map before? Should you be able to select maps like you could in the old MW4 days? Or do you think a percentage system, or is it fine as it is?
I think a percentage system is going to be your way to go, but it's more waiting for community warfare. In its current state right now, you're looking at, I think the reason that they've said, I believe they've said, if not, it's what I'm saying, if you let people choose the map right now, then you're going to see maps go completely away, never used, because you're going to have people who only want to run on one specific map with one specific setup, and they just completely ignore all of the rest of the maps. But especially when you get community warfare and we're fighting over specific planets, I think that's going to be a way to go with the percentage-based chance of, we're fighting on a map that's mostly desert-like. So you're going to see the desert map, you're going to see Caustic Valley, you might see River City or something, I don't know. But you just have a chance of, you're not going to see Forest Colony or the snow maps. I think the percentage-based system is definitely going to be good. What I would also like to see is being able to choose your mech. You can select a mech and it's in your like little drop bay of 4 mechs that you can instantly choose from before launching into a match. I think if once you load into a match, you could have those 4 mechs ready and then select which one you wanted to go based on the map that you just saw, that you just got randomly chosen into. I think that'd be also a good way of tackling the issue.
That's quite a neat little idea, actually. So, you're not necessarily taking the most hyper-efficient mech, but you can kind of balance out your options. That's an interesting idea. Okay.
Just drop in a flea first.
Sorry, say again?
You just drop in a flea first, and then when you realise it's a long-range snipe fest, you just bring out your Gaussilla hero mech.
Okay, now obviously we've got the Conquest game mode coming up as well. I believe it was mentioned in one of Garth's questions and answers sections. And the question was, will the Conquest game mode be taking place on the current maps, or does it have its own rotation of maps? How long is the average Conquest match on your test service? And can we expect a more strategic match? Garth's answer was same maps but different layouts. Some of the spawn points being moved about and whatever. Guys, what are your expectations for the new game mode, the new Conquest game mode? Is this something you're excited about? Do you think there's going to be some more strategic depth? Do you have any suggestions for the mode? JC, what do you think?
I gotta say, I'm not excited at all for this. Maybe I'm just like
party pooper, absolute party pooper.
I don't know. It just looks. I mean, I played Conquest. I really used to play Battlefield 1942 a lot. It's a really good feature. But there's one thing that's going to be really weird, and that is, and I'm really surprised. I was expecting not to do this, so I'm surprised. But there's no respawn in a Conquest type game. So if you look at all other all the Conquest type games I've played, and certainly Battlefield being the sort of where it all started. I mean, you can respawn until you've captured all the bases or whatever. But in this, you can capture all the bases or your team is destroyed. So I don't know. I think that could possibly have a negative effect on it, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. I'm not like hyper excited about it, but I'd rather just have team deathmatch, to be honest.
Dale, where do you stand on the issue? Are you excited by this, or do you think the lack of respawn is going to seriously hamper it as a game mode?
I think the lack of respawn is definitely going to hamper it to a certain extent. What I'd like to see, they've mentioned their dropship mode, where you have 4 mechs that, like when you lose one, another one drops in and you play as that. That combined with Conquest mode, definitely a good combination there. But by itself, you add some strategic depth to what we currently have, where you have, well, instead of just the 1 base to fight over, you now have 5 in total. But you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see light mechs scouting, trying to take over something. As soon as you know where the enemy is, you're going to have your heavier mechs move in, try and defend the same points. The only thing that can really shake things up is if you get into those. Once you have 6 mechs dead on each team, and you have maybe a light mech alive on one and a heavy on the other, and you're going to see that light mech being able to run around and win the game much more easily, because he can just run to each cap point and cap. And if you're moving too slowly, it's not going to matter because you're not going to be able to stop him. But other than that, I don't see any that much strategic depth added to what we currently have.
Magician, what are your feelings on it?
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fairly complex play. I think that you're going to see people doing some interesting things, especially with bait matchmaking. I think tactically it's going to be difficult to figure out the best way to play it right now, as an armchair, until we get into it, because it really depends on how fast those bases tick. How fast can you capture, and how fast do those points go up? If we're only doing 10-minute game mode on a capture, or 15 minutes on a capture, that's a pretty short amount of time for that style. Yeah. Anyhow, I mean, obviously with some of the MWOs, they were just like 15-minute games, but I think what you're going to end up seeing is a lot of light pilots, a lot of ECM, and a lot of people just kind of riding in waves and trying to cap bases. I think that slow-moving mechs are going to have a harder time. but mediums are going to have their place a little bit more, such as the Cicada, because that'll be a nice fast medium with ECM. And one thing I'm a little bit worried about is that it'll just turn into an attrition game. However, if the ticking is fast enough, you'll start with one base. If you can get to the center and get to third base, and actually hold that without engaging in a full-out war, maybe flanking in the rears to pick them off if they try to make it an attrition game. Like if that's how fast you can get it to tick down, I think the game will be really interesting, and I think people will really like it. The only way it seems that they can make this a respawn game, though, is if they kind of change their entire model. They have to get away from this repair-based model for their economy. And maybe for that style, they could just make it a non-repair. That you just don't repair after those games, and they just make it a lower amount of money that you get from them. I think if the players want that and they ask for it, and people aren't liking it, they'll make the changes. I think we just have to kind of see how that's going to work out.
I think maybe larger teams might be a resolution to it. It could certainly add some more depth. I was a big fan of MWLL, the Living Legends mod, with a lot of its Conquest mode, and I know there was obviously respawn in that, but you did tend to have larger teams, and because you had a variety of different base locations to capture as part of Conquest, I think the larger teams really added something to the depth of that, and it was an engaging game mode. So I would like to see perhaps some larger maps, some larger teams for the Conquest mode. JC, what else do you have to say on it?
Yeah, this is the one thing that kind of worries me. It kind of a bit what you were saying about like how teams are going to play. I think like because there's no respawn, and obviously you want to make the most amount of money by capping the bases. So I just think you're going to see teams basically legging or trying to leg the other team as much as possible, and then just leave them there and then run around and just cap the base as high as you can to just make the most money. That's what concerns me. It's going to be a legging fest. Also, you're going to see people bring in ravens, loads of ravens, because they basically are like, I don't know, they can take more damage than a freaking Atlas at the moment. So yeah, but it will be a legging fest unless you're in a raven.
But is that necessarily going to be a bad thing? Yeah, no, I never had a problem with legging, personally. I know a lot of people have had issues with legging in the past. They call it not proper Mechwarrior, but
I'm saying like, oh my god, you shouldn't leg. I don't give a shit. Like, leg people's legs off. I don't care. But what I'm saying is, if you want to make the most money, if you leg the opponent so they can't move very fast, you can just run around and cap the bases up willy-nilly and make all the money, and then just shoot them at the end and kill them, and just get all the monies.
All the money. But then, of course, you're going to have that issue. If you leg them, you only take out one leg. Surely you're not going to get the salvage bonus unless you actually kill them. And if you're gonna go kill them, what's the point in running around and capping all the bases? You may as well just
leave them.
Just
leave them to die. Leave them to wander in the desert while you make all the jungle.
Like that scene from Mad Max 3 where he's left in the desert to wander alone on a donkey.
Exactly. All you want is one guy in an Atlas, like kill everybody else in their team, one guy in an Atlas, leg him, and then just go bye.
Bye. Okay, well, what else have we had in news? Well, we've also had speculation that there will be a new map on the next patch, and it's one that's actually going to be fought at night time. You're going to be required to use night vision. Dun, dun, dun. So come on, guys, are you excited by this? We've actually got a use for that shiny night vision mode now. Rather than it just looking pretty and not really serving a purpose. Dale, you excited by it?
Definitely excited by it. It's always felt out of place, not having night vision but not having a map to use it on. So it's odd to have a feature in a game and have literally no use for it, except for maybe if you're in a tunnel on Forest Colony, that even then you don't really want to use it anyway. So being able to have a feature be able to be used in the manner that it was intended for is definitely a good thing.
I mean, just looking on the Twitch chat there, Iron Sadakar mentions, and it was a point I was going to bring up, that you could probably just use thermal vision anyway. What advantage do you think that there is to using the night vision magician? What do you think?
I'm imagining terrain and buildings, you won't be able to see them as well. That's my guess. I mean, for example, right now on thermal on Forest Colony, you can't see the terrain nearly as well. They actually darkened that a few patches ago, and I was assuming that was because of the night maps. So I think I think there will be a purpose. Hopefully, the night vision. I don't know if people have used it, but I mean, I've used it at times just for fun. But it illuminates mechs a bit differently in the heat mode as well.
I mean, JC, what are your feelings on it? Do we need more maps like this? Do you need more variety, or do you think that they should just knuckle down, get belt and braces maps out, and then worry about the fancy features like night vision later on down the line when we've got a bit more variety in the map base already?
When they introduced the last map that we had, which was Forest City Night, or whatever it was, I figured that was going to be like a proper nighttime map where you would use your thermal vision. Obviously, it actually turned out to be clear and extremely bright. I think the night maps will be interesting. Certainly, it was always interesting in the past playing on night maps. It does change the game up a lot. I think one thing that will be really weird is, with that lack, certainly with ECM, having that lack of kind of situational awareness through your targeting. Yeah, but I mean, there's somebody who posted up a screenshot of River City Night, and obviously you're going to see all the tracer fire and the shit flying around, and I think that'll look pretty interesting. I'll certainly be eye candy. It'd be interesting to see how it affects gameplay. Like, I'll be really worried, like, because certainly when you could think about like the HDR bug and stuff, I mean, if you're going to get like massive flashes of white light, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to shoot things. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, I'm interested to see what it looks like.
Now, I mean, another point brought up in the chat, do you think that there are going to be many of particularly the newer players, that are going to know how to use the night vision mode? You know, there are some people who play the game who don't even know that there's a thermal mode. So do you think that's something PGI needs to address a little bit better? We've talked about the tutorial thing before, you know. Is there a way that they could perhaps highlight that, particularly on those maps? Magician, what do you think?
I think they'll be like, I can't see it. How do I turn on night vision or something? And people will tell them, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. And yeah.
You're a lot more faithful on the helpfulness of the MWO community than I am.
Honestly, I think they have been mostly useful. Other than Alt F4 is turn on night vision. Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll see plenty of that too. But I think MWO community has generally been pretty useful for people when they've had questions. I mean, I've been in the middle of a drop and running straight forward while I'm trying to type out how to change your weapon controls for people. So I don't think it's gonna be too much of a problem once people. Give people a few days to use it.
You certainly have a lot more faith than I do. And my faith is shattered somewhat. I saw on the forums today someone saying they had trouble with the game. The advice he got on the forums was to delete his sys32 folder. So, I haven't got a whole lot of faith the community will come together to help those guys out.
Oh yeah, come on. It's not as bad. Our community's not nearly as bad as some. I mean, you go into some games, and if you don't know what you're doing, people are telling you just to uninstall, quit life, all that stuff. In this game, honestly, people are pretty damn nice compared to any other game I've ever played. So, I have a little bit of faith in this community.
All right, it's not League of Legends. I'll give you that.
I think it's a really good way for them to to explain the black screen bug. It's not a bug anymore, it's a feature.
It's an absolute feature, working as intended.
I do agree with Mythos, though, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. People will catch on very quickly on how to turn on night vision. I mean, you're going to have the trolls going and saying, I don't remember what it was, it's something between Alt F3 and Alt F4. or Alt F5. Just try one of those three. But I mean, going back in closed beta, you had I cannot tell you how many matches I drop into, and the absolute first thing anybody says, either on your team chat or all chat or whatever, is press R to target, because people didn't know. I really think it's going to be a non-issue. It's going to be an issue for maybe 1-2 games when you've dropped onto it. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't like what's night vision. I've never had to use that before, but somebody will tell you very, very quickly. And I do think some type of tutorial system. I know they're working on tutorial videos. We really need. I'd love to see an instruction manual. But something along those lines is also going to be beneficial later on. Is like work on it in pieces, but we really need something along those lines eventually to teach new players.
Haven't you seen Penny Arcade has already done the instruction manual for MWO? They've got that covered. It's easy. It's fine. Alright guys, well that's been the news for this week. Those have been the things that we got coming up. I'm kind of excited for this Tuesday's patch. I'm really excited to see what's coming, what changes they're going to drop. So yeah, definitely going to be online for for that. Obviously as well, potentially Stalker. What do we think?
Do you want to know what I think?
Go on, tell me what you think. I'm all ears, JC. Let me know your opinion.
It's a dildo on legs. How could you not want this mech in the game?
Classy. You are so classy.
I'm really excited to see it coming in, actually. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, in tabletop, it's a monster. It has, I believe it's the highest potential damage output. And I'm sure, we're going to see that replicated here in the game. You can already look at some builds. You're talking over 100 points alpha damage. Yeah, it's going to be pretty immense. I think it's going to be slow as crap though. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you can slap 6 LRM 15s on it, or or 6 SRM 6s and a bunch of lasers. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Dale, are you excited for this? Are you have you already got those builds running through your head? I know what you like is spend a great deal of time in that mech lab.
I've already got some builds running through my head. I definitely think it's going to be a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. I mean, just using the hardpoint system, just looking at Sarna, looking at the what is this, the 3F model, the basic one. You're looking at 4 missile hardpoints and 6 energy. It's going to be a beast if you can get the right loadout on it. What you're going to see, though, I think is what I think the main build is going to be. You're going to see people slap a bunch of SRMs and medium lasers on it. You can probably run an LRM boat, but it's going to require some teamwork. You're going to have somebody else on comms with you, being able to tag for you. But I think it's going to be definitely a beast of a mech once it hits. Just from the amount of alpha damage it can be, you don't want to see one of those things coming at you in Frozen City's cave.
So, I mean, the Magician. How have you been factoring the Stalker into your drop decks and team tactics? Have you had any thoughts on how you're going to be using it yet?
Well, 4-tag laser, 6 streak 2 sounds like a good config. I'm sorry, it's my favorite thing when I see somebody with more than 1 tag laser. That's the way you troll. No, I don't know. I think it's going to be a really interesting mech. I mean, is it going to be able to take down an Atlas? Is it going to be better than an Atlas? I don't know. I think that it'll make the awesome irrelevant, though, and possibly. I think that it'll be one of those mechs that you'll see a lot of people taking. Except, I think the biggest thing that's going to make it useful is the tag laser being extended to 750 meters, so it will be able to load the tag laser and do its LRMs or do streaks. So it will become a pretty good base defender. I mean, if you just got a tag laser and 6 streak 2s on a base, any lights or mediums that come on there will be able to take out. So I think you'll be seeing people doing that. As for the organized play that we do with the league and such, I don't see it as being a great mech yet, but it's possible. I haven't, until I play it and see how the heat runs with things like 5 large lasers or And how the mech actually moves, I'm not sure, but it's definitely gonna be a fun mech to play. I should actually start grinding so I can buy one. So it's gonna be expensive, I think, with the outfit.
I mean, that's one of the things. We are going to see a lot of the Stalker coming out, and I think generally people are going to have to. Sorry, just looking at something there. Generally, people are going to have to prepare themselves. You know, anytime we get a new mech, the Cataphract is a prime example of that. Is you're going to see a lot of them in pugs, and I think really a lot of players are going to have to prepare themselves for that thing. You know, you're going to have match on match, just lines and lines of Stalkers, and you're probably going to get the usual complaints that it's unbalanced because you're going to have lots of bow team mechs. But personally, I think once the number of mechs balance out again, you start getting the lights and everything else. You probably won't see as many of them, and it won't seem as OP. I mean, I don't know what you guys think on that. Not a great deal. That's fair enough.
Well, I think one of them is supposed to have ECM, if I remember hearing right. So that'll definitely change things. Having an alternative to the DDC as an ECM assault, and I think people will be using that a lot, especially if it's an LRM, big LRM mech with ECM that could be pretty strong, or a long range mech with ECM would be very powerful.
Okay, exciting stuff. Lots of changes coming up, lots of things to look forward to the next patch. Okay, talking about ECM, I think this is probably a good time to switch over to our main topic for this evening, or evening for me, afternoon for you guys. And that is obviously ECM. Now, the official ECM thread has had a lot of responses. Most of them have actually been fairly positive. A lot of people saying it's added a new level of strategic depth to the game. They've enjoyed it. It's been implemented well. It works very well. First time out the gate. Not too many issues with it. But then you're getting the other side of the coin where people aren't posting in the official thread forum. They're posting in general discussion that ECM is OP. It's completely thrown out the game. That light mechs are now some kind of mini ninja assassins that are running around behind the enemy lines. I mean, is this ECM working as intended, or do you think it has been well implemented? Overall, what's our feelings on this, guys? Dale, let me know.
I feel like it's in a good place right now, and I'm really hesitant to, call it OP or call it too good, or it's definitely not too bad. I'd rather see some more in the game longer, because I think one of the main issues with it is that it fundamentally changes how you want to run your mechs, because you have to be aware that the other team's running ECMs just as you're running ECM. I think one of the main reasons that you're seeing general discussion and get so many QQ threads about it is without comms, without being able to properly coordinate with your team, one mech running through with ECM and followed by 2 or 3 others that don't have it, and you're not able to target any of them. You have chickens running with their head cut off. You don't know who to target. You can't really get in there and focus one target down with your teammate because you don't know which one they're targeting. Whenever you completely disrupt their communication systems that way and you have no backup communication systems, it really screws with pug players. I definitely think I think they're doing a good thing with this next patch, extending tag range to 750, especially if they've officially gone and said that the rock to its scissors is supposed to be tag. With extending the tag range, yes, you're going to have an issue with actually being able to keep that tag laser on consistently, especially on a light mech. Something like a DDC, though, you're going to have no issue constantly tagging it. But extending the range there is definitely going to, I think, break through some of the OP-ness it has. But yeah, I really just want to see some more data gathered on. I really want to see have people have more time to play around with it before I really pass on any side of harsh judgment.
I mean, one of the things, like you said, is it can sometimes be very difficult to pick out your target. And obviously that's a problem experienced by a lot of the pugs because they don't have their the team chat to coordinate. But I think it's something that's affected the team play as well, because it's again very difficult just to say, hey, target, go hit target alpha, for example, when half the team can't see which mech target alpha is because of the ECM. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a very good point. And again, it makes the drop commander have to be much more aware, give much clearer directions about what he needs targeting. You know, so again, that extra element of strategic depth, that's certainly my point of view. JC, what do you think about it?
I think generally, like, ECM's been really, really good for the game. I think that there's some, like, a few little niggles that need to be worked out. But it's made some of the other mechs, which maybe seemed a bit, like, OP. It's brought balance to them, like, with streak boats and stuff. You know, I know that there's another sort of change coming for streaks. But certainly at the moment, you know, if you bring a streak boat, I mean, you can own lights. But if you don't have ECM and they do, you're screwed. So it's a powerful mech, but it's a risk, you know, or if you don't have a teammate with ECM. It has brought some really interesting changes to the way that, you know, you're going to play certain mechs, or even if you're going to bring certain mechs. Like, you've already got to think about it. I mean, the other thing with ECM is that, yeah, it is a bit more difficult now. You know, it's not like you can't just target a mech and, you know, everyone's going to kind of see. I mean, certainly compared to where the game was before ECM, and when we look back to previous iterations of Mechwarrior, we're generally, as a community, used to being able to see a lot more information in general. And when Mechwarrior Online came out, we suddenly, you know, had this sort of almost like double blind situation from the tabletop rules, where, you know, unless you have line of sight, you can't see that mech, and nobody else on your team can see it. The only thing that kind of makes me wonder with ECM is ECM in the game at the moment is doing more than what ECM should do.
It combines the Angel and the Guardian ECM modules together, I think, from the tabletop. I think that's what the issue is.
All right. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, I you know, technically Guardian ECM shouldn't make the mech impossible to see. It should just jam the electronics. But if they're combining multiple ECMs together, then... but it's weird because I didn't think Angel ECM, like, that should come along a lot later in the timeline, so that's quite surprising.
And that's certainly what I've seen and been told about it. It's sort of combined those two ECM suites together and just made it the one thing as Guardian ECM in there. I mean, Magician, what do you think about it? Would you like to see any changes to it? Do you think the fact that it's only really counted by itself a bit of a design flaw, or do you think that tag extension is really going to be the winner?
Well, I don't think the tag extension is going to be the full counter. First of all, ECM I think was a great addition. Having something like that added a tactical depth that we were missing. I think it brought back the lights as having really interesting battles that we used to have when there was tackling, and then they removed that, made some of the light duels a little bit less interesting. But now with ECM, the way that you work it, the way you try to exploit it against the other team and use that as your leverage to get an advantage, I think it's working awesome. However, I think there's some serious problems with ECM in that it makes mechs that are not ECM far less useful than they used to be. There's some changes that could happen. You know, I don't care if they stick to tabletop or not in that sense. I think they just need to make some changes. Some things I've had in mind are like PPCs might be something that would temporarily disable ECM if you hit a mech with them, or having other mechs have some kind of a counter to ECM they can use, but maybe having it be either something that's heavy or skill based. Also, I like the Mechwarrior 4 personally that BAP had a little bit of a counter to ECM, like it extended radar ranges. I don't know how they'd want to do it here. I know in tabletop that BAP doesn't counter ECM in any way, but I did like that feature. I also liked in Mechwarrior 4 how missile a lot of times went down when a mech had ECM. Again, it's not tabletop, but it just added a little bit of rock paper scissors to it. You know, a little bit of complexity to your what kind of mechs you'd want to take. Would you want to take an ECM mech? Would you want to take a BAP and ECM mech, or would you take a mech with BAP or a mech that had ECM? So maybe if they made BAP a little bit better than it is, and then put that only on certain configs, I think that would add something that would make you think second about what mechs do you actually want to take in your drop deck, and how do you want to run those.
And JC, what are some of the changes? Do you agree with some of the changes that the Magician is suggesting there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we look back to Mechwarrior 4, BAP was a sort of a counter to ECM, and ECM and BAP seem to sort of do more. I'm really excited that ECM is actually working more like it should do based on tabletop rules, in that it has different modes, and you have to learn whether you can use it to block and then you counter enemy ECM. I do feel like BAP is this sort of in this void right now. It doesn't seem to certainly compared to ECM, it feels like it's underpowered. I mean, all it's really doing is not making you spend some money on the modules, which basically almost do the same job. I don't know. I mean, why would you? I just don't see why you'd bring BAP when you've got ECM at the moment. I think maybe it could do with a buff. What it could do, I'm not really sure. But I do think that they need to look at some of that balancing. I mean, they're going to bring in other electronics, and there has to be a synergy between all these electronic systems, whereby it has to be a rock paper scissors effect between them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying in the chat there, one of the things I personally would like to see is perhaps a bigger trade-off on weapons for ECM. So if you are taking ECM, there's less chance you can load out or boat your mech in quite the same way. Perhaps not an ideal system for balancing, because you're obviously still using it in a team kind of setting, but it would perhaps bring some sort of balance. And I think you raised, you and Mephos have both raised an interesting point that, the effect on BAP. Is BAP worthless? What about the increased sensor range module for all the XP as well? You spend a lot of XP trying to get those modules in, and if you select the increased sensor range, well, that is kind of worthless now. Do you agree with that, or do you think actually ECM has balanced some of these things up, like BAP? Or in fact some of the other weapon systems like LRMs and AMS. What do you think, Dale?
I don't know if it's quite balanced it. I think it has kind of rendered BAP and the extended range not useless, but you really, in organized drops, definitely useless. But in pug play, it's still able to be used. I really, it's. I'm a fan of this wait and see approach, because I feel like the tag laser is going to help with ECM, but also to a certain extent. But it's odd because we have an element here that's just fundamentally changing the game, and people have found and pointed out that for 1.5 tons and 2 critical slots, have something that changes the game this much seems to be broken. But I think it's just more of a wait and see. You have to let people adapt to it before you can make any type of changes to it, really. Maybe BAT affecting it somehow. I'm not sure how, but I really...
Magician, what else have you got to say on the issue?
Well, I think one thing they might want to consider is extending ECM to all the cicadas and all the ravens, because right now the way it works is that it really makes the other ones far weaker and really useless. I mean, there's no reason to take the other ravens. There's no reason to take the other cicadas. And as part of the way the system works, people are trying to grind up their mechs. It would make it a lot more enjoyable for people if they had a reasonable cicada, with the one with the ECM, so they're not giving their team a disadvantage by taking the non-ECM one in these open games.
One thing I would actually like to see with ECM in terms of any type of reduction in it or nerf to it or whatever, extend that 20-meter band, because right now it's ECM out to 180 meters, but between 180 meters and 200 meters, you can target just fine. It's basically nullified. You don't need to even worry about ECM anymore because you can target. Your team can see what you're targeting, and it's basically functions as normal. But when you have only that 20-meter band that you're able to do it, and extend that maybe to a 50-meter band or an 80-meter band, then you think you have a little bit more play. Because right now, I don't think I know of anybody who can consistently stay within 180 meters and 200 meters from, say, a Raven moving at max speed.
JC?
Yeah, I was just looking up on the Angel ECM, and it shouldn't actually disrupt you being able to target the mech. It does disrupt like Beagle Active Probe and like C3 computers, but ECM does that anyway. But Artemis and Bloodhound active probes. But technically, if you can see the mech, you should still be able to target it. And so null signature is basically where it would reduce you being able to target that mech. Obviously, null signature will reduce your heat signature as well, so ECM doesn't do that. But I don't know, I mean, ECM, from what I know, and I'm not a tabletop nut, but it shouldn't stop you being able to target a mech if you have line of sight to it. And I don't know why they did that. Now, I do want to make it clear that I don't think this game should be tabletop rules online. I think that they should use it as a base. But I just confused as to why they made it so you can't flat out target a mech if you can see it. I'm not opposed to it. I'd just be interested to know why they made that design decision.
I mean, one of the things I've seen suggested in one of the forum posts was actually working on extending the visual range within the game's actual engine. And perhaps that could be a means of helping to balance, because yes, all right, you may not be able to target the mech, but at least if you could see the mech at range, you would be more likely to be able to at least hit it, and you perhaps wouldn't be quite so surprised by the Phantom Ninja lance that suddenly appears around the side, because it's, you couldn't see it on the game engine, and then when it actually closed up, you couldn't see it on radar because of ECM. Do you think some of the improvements to the game engine being an improvement? Magician, what do you think?
I guess that would help. It seems like we've talked about it when we were team. It seems like some of the visual things have actually decreased. I noticed on Forest Colony, an area I used to be able to clearly see from some points that I would look out from with my Gauss pole. I can't see when mechs are in that area anymore, even visually. I would admit that on night for Frozen City, ECM's not as much of an advantage, say with the DDCs, as it is on regular Frozen City, because they can hide more in the snow and in the fog, whereas in a clear map, you can certainly see them coming and target them much easier.
Dale, what do you think? Do you think that we could see some visual engine improvements? I mean, I personally know that a lot of the time when I'm trying to fire at range with my gauze, I use the thermal vision mode, just because it's a lot easier to see mechs that way than trying to visually spot with the restrictions on the game engine's visual range.
I'd like to see it clear. You basically remove some of this fog that we have. Keep it in some maps, such as Frozen City. It works very well there. As Mythos pointed out, it is a visual clarity is a good counter to ECM, simply because you can't target it, but you can clearly see him walking right at you. But yeah, as far as game engine improvements, I think you can never stop improving visuals, especially with Mechwarrior Online and how beautiful it can look. As you look at other maps where they've hidden everything, and then you look at Frozen City Night, and they finally removed all the fog. They removed everything that was obscuring your vision. You can see just how pretty the game can look.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so JC, how have you been finding the introduction of ECM within the competitive team environment, particularly with how it's meshed with the new 8v8 matchmaking?
Well, I mean, I haven't played a RunHotorDie match yet, since ECM was implemented. So it's kind of hard to say. I really don't think that what we're seeing in sort of just the AV8s, certainly from when I played, is anyway indicative of what it's going to be like. You know, without any kind of matchmaking situation like class or tonnage, you know, everyone can just take 5 ECM Ravens and 5 DDC Atlases with ECM, and that's, you know, we know that's not going to be how it's going to pan out in the future with weight restrictions. But certainly, I mean, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see teams using them. I mean, the Raven and the Cicada 3M are both extremely strong mechs. I mean, there's no way that all the teams aren't going to be fielding them at some point. I mean, they're just too good. So yeah, I mean, it has changed things, but I guess as you know, as things progress, we'll kind of get a bigger idea of how it's going to affect things.
I mean, Magician, I believe you've played some of the RHOD matches this week. How have you been finding the implementation of ECM in that competitive game environment?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it really makes the lights, how they work together, and much more important than it was before. I mean, it was already very important, but it was a little bit more strategic in how they work together with ECM, like when they go to counter, you know, disrupt. When you're scouting, you have to look at the numbers, because you have to know ECM numbers if you can actually go in there or not. If they can actually out-counter you, then you're going to have some problems. And you know, the DDC, the interesting thing about the DDC, for example, is that it can't run some of the configs that the RS or the D can. So yet you have a little bit of a trade-off. Like, are you going to go with the DDC with the ECM, or are you going to use a mech that might be a config that you prefer to take? So in our games, we saw some DDCs. I think the team that we faced used, but to me, it wasn't really so much of an issue because an Atlas is a big target, and it's just like, okay, shoot the one who's in front. I mean, it's pretty easy to do with them. It's harder to do with a fast moving mech that's going all around you to actually say target that one.
And in fact, that's one of the other things you said. There's obviously the limitation on what the DDC can take compared to, say, the Atlas D or the RS. Would you find that in the competitive matches you played that there were less ECM mechs running around compared to your normal pug game?
Well, certainly, I would say yes, because the way that we have the league set up is you have to take certain mech classes. So you have to take heavies. Well, you don't have an ECM heavy. So right there you're seeing less. Also, sometimes you have 3 mediums. And you can think about a little trade-off. You want to take 2 cicadas, you want to take 1 cicada for the ECM, then you want to take the Hunchback. Hunchback has a little more firepower than the cicada, but you know, it might run hotter, and it's not as fast, but there's some trade-offs there that the teams can consider. So in that aspect, you know, I don't think you're going to see just the ECM. You're not going to see as much of these teams who are doing the 4 Raven, 4 DDC, rushing bases type tactics, because against organized play, there's things to counter that. So you still have to have your drop deck made out right. You still have to have your tactics working right besides ECM. You're not going to win just because you have more ECM. So, yeah.
Now, I mean, one of the other things that has been mentioned, I've been trying to pull in a lot of the ideas from the MWO forums. One of the suggestions was about the return of collisions to the game and how that might limit the effect of the light mech ECM carriers. What do you think? Do you think we're a little bit overdue for a return of collisions? Do you think it's needed, or, you know, again, are we just too early to tell with ECM? JC, what do you think?
Well, I think obviously we need the collision system back as soon as possible, because we're just seeing a whole host of issues related to it being taken out. I mean, hitboxes, it's a big problem, the hitbox problem. I mean, this is basically why the Raven is so good, because if you can unalign your hitboxes and you've got ECM, the thing is just a monster. You can just tank everything. You know, I mean, I've had it where you've got a light mech shutting down from overheating, and you can just put an alpha into its leg. It's not moving, but you're not hitting its hitboxes. It just takes no damage, or a glancing blow. I mean, it's a big problem, and we know that that is because they took the collision system out. However, you know, we want this game to be better going forward. So it was obvious that the netcode situation and the collision situation it just wasn't good enough. And I think they made the right choice that for the longer term, they pull it out, they rewrite the whole thing, they break it down and get it right. Because I'd rather they do that than just stuff it back in there and it be half-baked and half-assed for the next couple of years. I'd rather that we have that sorted because it's really important for enjoying the game. So I'd rather put up with, you know, ravens everywhere for a while and know that we're going to get, you know, a more solid netcode and more solid collision system in the future.
Now, Dale, you're a sensible, measured kind of individual. Are you agreeing with JC's opinion that, you know, let's just be patient for the return of collisions, or do you want it now? And will you throw your teddy in the corner if you don't get it?
No, I definitely think they made the right call for what they were doing. Especially once, at the time they did it, they were going open beta, and it's when you have more of a showing of people trying out the game for the first time, and I think they made the right call of let's just pull collision out for right now, because as soon as we have people brand new to the game seeing mechs warping all over the place, as soon as they collide, or especially any new players hopping into a light for the first time and just tripping, it's a little bit more noob friendly in that regard. But I think as soon as we get the netcode issues fixed, as soon as we can get collisions back again, so much of the lights running around amok becomes a complete non-issue, because you say you just have two lights versus two lights. You have one of your guys strip the other one, and the other one just peg him. It really becomes so much of a non-issue as soon as we get collisions back.
Magician, where are you standing on the issue?
I look forward to its return. I look forward to what they've said is that mechs will actually, when they fall, will actually be in the right location. So you don't have to guess where they actually are on the ground. Because, I mean, yeah, you trip a mech on your side, and if it's actually falling, and on the part, and you can see, you know, you shoot it, it's dead. So that makes a mechanic, that added, I mean, that was one of the funnest things, the most competitive parts of the game, was how that worked, how the mechanic worked. It gives you something to do when you have no weapons left on your mech as well. You know, you can kind of be, and also how they do it with tonnages can be very interesting. For example, how does a hunchback and a cicada, when they collide, how does that work? So do you want to take a hunchback because it's going to actually bowl over a cicada? Or is the cicada, because it's faster, going to be able to just run right over a hunchback? I'm really curious how that's going to work. You know, are they going to add real falling damage? Yeah, I think that they need to have collision back in, or you know, some kind of collision mechanic, so that you don't have mechs that are just running right. You know, ravens aren't running right into an atlas, because there's no reason not to. You know, why would a raven not run into an atlas and shoot at its legs, or shoot it right up close so an atlas can't shoot it back? There's no downside to it right now. So absolutely, we need collision back in, but I want it to be right. So let's wait until they actually get it done.
Now, where do you stand on the idea of team collisions? Would you prefer a more pug-friendly situation where you can't collide with your teammates, but you can collide with enemy mechs? Or do you think collisions across the board, you know, and it makes you pay much more attention to your piloting and everything else? JC, what do you think?
I think having team collisions is fine. I mean, it's only ridiculous when you're getting knocked over like 3 times in a row consecutively, and you know, and all those kind of problems from this original system. I mean, they need to get that fixed. One thing, I mean, when we're looking at the collision system down the road, is, you know, will you be able to just continuously knock a mech over again and again and again, and it just never gets up? Or do you have something like, you know, in Mechwarrior 4 they had a timer. So if you were knocked over, you couldn't be knocked over again within a certain period of time. I think it was like 20 seconds or something. I'm not exactly sure now. But, you know, do we see something like that? You know, if you're just going to get pounded by, you know, massive alpha damage and knocked over, or if you're, you know, if your teammate's kicking you in the butt with his leg as an atlas and you're a raven, you know, and he's just doing it again and again and again, I mean, it's going to get annoying, right? So will there be a way to sort of, you know, make sure that that doesn't happen? Because it's not fun for you as a player, because you're out, once you're knocked over, you've got no control, right? And as soon as you're not in control, it takes away from the game. So they need to make sure that it's balanced, so that it is, you know, something that you've got to be careful of, that there's a risk about it, that the enemy can use it against you, and it forces you to, you know, not pilot really lazily around your own teammates. But at the same time, it can't be so penalizing that it detracts from the game and it just becomes, you know, annoying when you spend the whole half of a match or a firefight getting knocked over continuously by atlases dancing around each other.
Magician, what do you think about it?
Team collisions this year. I don't see why not to have it. I mean, I don't really think it's that much of an issue. It wasn't that much of an issue before, from like a troll. You know, there wasn't people couldn't like troll that easily with it, or at least they weren't doing it. I also don't see a reason not to have team-based collision included. I mean, you have team-based. You know, you can shoot your teammates, so you might as well be able to run into them.
Now, Dale, where do you think? Do you think we should have this Care Bear idea where you a knockdown mech is immune to knockdown for a little bit after, or do you fully believe in pinning down a Jenna while you stomp its face in? Possibly a little bit of teabagging as well, you know.
Going real back into the previous question, though, of team collisions, just reflecting Mythos' sentiments there of, we can already shoot our teammates, why wouldn't we be able to knock them down? But as far as, you know, getting knocked down continuously, I do definitely see JC's point of, you know, as soon as you're knocked down, you can basically just hands up on the keyboard. I'm not doing anything until I can get control of my mech again. But at the same time, it's anything too long of, you know, being able to not be knocked down suddenly gives you a little bit too much invulnerability. So I mean, you should be able, you can stand up all the way and possibly maybe like a 3-second, 5-second little Care Bear timer, but something enough that you can get moving again, but small enough that if you're surrounded by 8 of the enemy mechs, you're not going anywhere.
Okay, well, I think we've covered most of the main points for that discussion, really, unless anyone else has anything to add. I do want to kind of move on to ECM team tactics, though, and obviously we've done a little bit before. Last week we did how to get the best out of your catapult builds. This week it's how to get the best out of your ECM on your competitive team. And, you know, I want to see, basically, what are your guys' choices for the top ECM mechs at the minute? Again, we're not going to be discussing specific builds because obviously certain teams like to keep their builds close to their chest. But just so that you can give people pointers of what kind of mechs they should perhaps be looking at. I suspect JC is going to say the invulnerable Raven tank build, but you know, what kind of ECM, what kind of things should people be looking at when they're looking at viable ECM mechs for their teams? Dale, let me know.
As far as viable ECM mechs, you're looking at probably the holy grail, holy trinity right now of them has got to be the Raven 3L, the Cicada 3M, and the Atlas DDC. Specifically, the Atlas DDC is protecting anything that can't keep up with your Ravens and Cicadas because they can move at about the same speed. So I mean, being able, especially having, you know, a 4-man lance of Ravens and all Ravens or all Cicadas or a mixture of both, it's definitely very powerful right now as far as ECM tactics are concerned because it's a nearly invisible scout lance.
Magician, I mean, obviously you're running a lot of, or looking at a lot of the tactical information of ECM, and we discussed that a little bit earlier. What are your best choices for ECM when you're looking as a drop commander?
Well, commandos, of course. Yeah, if you want to see what happens to commandos, watch our game against that we recently had in the RunHotorDie League, and just watch a commando lose its leg in one go shot. That's why you don't take commandos, honestly. I mean, they're okay. They're okay. You know, they're better now with ECM. But honestly, the commandos die so much faster than the Ravens. It's ridiculous. You can also watch in one of those matches because it really shows something. Is I output a Jenner and it was cored out in one shot. I don't know if he stripped armor on CT or not, but If I did that to a Raven, it's probably orange at best. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Ravens, but they just it absorbs damage that should not be absorbed, except for streaks. And honestly, that's where it comes down to with ECM. You're using them with your streaks, and you're trying to get your numbers with your ECM mechs. You're trying to get situations where you have 3 ECM mechs against 2. That way you can counter with 2 of them, and one of them is protecting your mechs. So now you're invulnerable to streaks, but you can streak them back. So that's pretty much how you want to set it up. And if you have a commando with you, yeah, the commando can have some uses that you don't, if you want to take something like a 3-streak 2 with a tag laser, for example, you can do some fun things with the commando. But for the higher, I think, competitive play, the DDC is the one that you just got to really outweigh against your atlases, the other atlases or your other assaults if you want to take an awesome. And with the mediums, again, like what I said before, with the hunchback, you're weighing it. Do you want the ECM with the fast cicada, or do you want maybe the higher firepower hunchback? And cicada has some other uses as well, and that has a fairly low profile. It can sneak in and out a little bit better, but it's leg damp. It doesn't have much leg armor, so if you shoot off their legs, they can die pretty fast. With the cicada, you have to really think about how you're playing that mech, because you don't have streaks, which means you don't have to go to counter to fire a lot of your weapons. So that's one of the things you want to work with that. So if you're going up against some other ECM mechs, you're not going to necessarily, you don't even have to counter ever, except if you're helping your own teammates find out an enemy or to get their streaks. So you have to have really good communication with your other mechs to find out when you're supposed to switch to counter. Otherwise, I would say the biggest thing for teams that are running ECM when you're working with ECM is set up your lead, set up your person who's your lead on your team that's calling the ECM movements, and those are my tips.
JC, is it even worth asking you what mech you're going to take? Probably not. So let's kind of brush over that.
With AC-20s. Oh no, that one doesn't have ECM. But you'll probably still win because they can't kill them.
What are your tips? How's WSB been looking at ECM, and what are your tips for people wanting to run ECM mechs?
The ECM mechs, see, both the Raven and the Cicada, I feel, are just like really good mechs. With ECM, I think it's made some of the other lights, like the Jenna. I mean, it's not just ECM. It is the problem with the Raven. But why are you going to take a Jenna when you can take a Raven, which can absorb so much more damage? It's got streaks, and you're going to be able to counter. He won't be able to. Well, he's got lasers, but it's just a really strong mech, but definitely. Taking 2 Ravens, I would probably suggest taking 2 Ravens. Kind of like what Mythos was saying with the Cicada, you've got to make a decision. Do you want to trade one Cicada for a more punchier mech like the Hunchback? So that's going to be down to your how you want to play in a match. But certainly, seeing teams taking Ravens, Cicadas, I think that's going to become the norm, certainly until maybe we start to see some more of these, what PGI is calling the counters to ECM, which tag is obviously the first. I mean, once tag gets changed to 750, that could change things slightly. That's going to really make it so that, you can tag up mechs and you're going to be able to see them again. So that could change the pace. We'll have to just wait and see. But the DDC, I mean, I had a DDC, and I fucking sold it because I don't. But I think with changes to ECM and stuff, changes to PVCs, it could get interesting. We know that they're going to add this anti-ECM effect, like an EMP thing. So suddenly, that could make DDC look even more attractive as a sniper platform. But we'll see. But definitely, Raven Cicadas, they're sexy. I like them.
Dale, hypothetical scenario for you. You're only allowed 2 ECM mechs. Are you going to take light mechs such as the 3L? Are you going to take heavier mechs, assault mechs like the DDC? Are you going to sit somewhere in the middle with the 3M? Or are you going to try and take a balance of 2 of those types of mechs?
Hypothetically, I'm going with the lights every single time. it really it comes down to, I guess that's my general philosophy on things, especially with this game. I know PGI set out trying to make sure that each weight class had a role, had a use, and one thing that they ended up doing with that is, I'm not sure if it was planned or not, but it definitely is working out very well. Once the dust is settled, once you're down to maybe 2-3 mechs, lights win games. You can have your Atlas, like if it's a 1v1 Atlas versus a Jenner or any other type of light, you can have him sit at base, but he's not going to win the game for you. As soon as he tries to push out, he just gets outcapped. So if you have to have ECM choice on where you want to go, I want to get on my lights. I want to make sure they're staying alive as long as possible, because if they can make it to the end game, they cannot lose. They can only win or tie. Whereas you have an Atlas DDC with it, he cannot win, but he cannot lose, and he can only tie. So it's an interesting little trade-off.
I mean, the Magician, you obviously mentioned in your first answer about the DC coordinating when to switch to counter, when to switch to disrupt. Do you think, using this hypothetical scenario, and you're using light mechs, do you think that there's a greater value perhaps in using the light mechs as ninja cappers for competitive matches, or do you think you need to have one out scouting, one fulfilling that disruption role?
That's just a tactical decision you have to make based on what you're seeing, what the other team's doing. I think the standard thing is you run out there, you finding out where they're at first. Certainly you don't want to go and cap and find out they have 6 mechs sitting on base waiting for you. So, you have to, that's a big tactical decision, and that comes, honestly, right now, I think what you see among these matches and when you have competitive teams running against competitive teams is there's a big play between capping and attrition. You'll see a lot of matches are finishing off in attrition, I believe, from the week 1 matchups. However, there are some that are in cap wins, and sometimes it's the capping that makes you win the attrition battle by dividing forces and such. So, you just, as a DC, you have to read the situation and make a call.
Good point. JC.
Hi.
Hello. What kind of effective counters could you employ as a drop commander to enemy ECM? I mean, obviously the hard counter is the thing like the disruptability or the counter ability on ECM. Are there any other tactics you would try to employ to try and counteract the use of ECM? Such as advising, just a couple of things spring to mind from me, is advising your pilots not to rely on their radar so much, not to rely on that little red box for your targeting, because you're fully able to shoot a mech without having a red box around it.
Yeah, obviously you've got to get pilots eyeballing. It's very, very easy to rely on the red box, the magic red box. And if the op forward is going to bring a lot of ECM, you've got to eyeball them up as much as possible. You've got to use your scouts to make sure that you at least know where the enemy is funneling, and that'll let you, sort of look for where you think they're going to be coming. It's just really important. Then it's more important that the drop commander is using their lights to the maximum ability. And that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to stick my lights in the tunnel and see if they come this way. You can make effective decisions based on what you don't see, what you don't, where are they? Then obviously, if they're not where X place, they're in Y place. So you can move your force to, set up in different areas and just eyeball. But yeah, when you get tag and stuff, that'll make things interesting. The longer range tag, that might make some LRMs start to seep back in, maybe, as well. That could be fun. But you just got to, I think a lot of pilots have just got to sort of raise their game, in terms of, you can't just rely on a red flashy box. You've got to you've got to just up your situational awareness, use your eyes. And the DC has to make sure that they're fully utilizing their scouts. So, you just have a better idea, a clearer idea of where the enemy force is, if they're split, where are they going, are they feinting you, you know, etc., etc., etc.
Dale, how important do you think the use of the Mark 1 eyeball is, and spatial awareness? You know, and more importantly, how do you perhaps encourage your team members to get out of the old mindset of relying on radar? It's something that's pretty much been ingrained in a lot of players since the start of MWO and even before. How do you get them relying on their own visual awareness skills?
How you get them relying on it is you let them know, you know, it'll seep in over time as they stop being able to, you know, there's a mech in front of me shooting at me, but I don't have a red box, what do I do? So it'll seep in over time once they start dying to it and once they start realizing it, but it really comes down to, you know, as a game, Mechwarrior Online demands so much out of its players. You have to be able to think. You have to be able to think on your feet, and you have to be able to realize, okay, well, I'm chasing down this one mech. I can't, because of ECM, I can't see what he is, but all of a sudden there's another mech here, which is the higher priority. And you can discuss that over with your team beforehand of like, you know, if you're chasing down the commando and an Atlas shows up, ignore the commando. But, I mean, to a certain extent, it requires people to think and, you know, realize you almost need to be able to have every single person on your team be able to take over the drop command role, be able to think at that level on the fly, because they need to know they should just be knowing which targets they need to be attacking. You cannot micromanage individual players that much.
Magician, Dale's obviously just touched on this with his last answer there, but you know, it's an important point. Sometimes as a DC with ECM up, you can't effectively call targets because obviously you don't have the little red box to say, hey, this is target hotel, this is target alpha, whatever. How do you prepare your team to come up against that situation? What kind of things should you be practicing so that even without the DC call, people know what they're doing?
There's a lot of different things that you can do. One of the things that I do is if I know the engagement's about to come, but I know it's an ECM one, I will say something such as, I want you to shoot the lead target, lead Atlas, you know, calling the mech chassis, something like that. But also, it's about teaching your pilots to all be having a similar mindset of how you actually want to engage in these things. For example, if you see a K2, are your pilots going to shoot that first or not? And that's a decision your team needs to make. But if you have those decisions and you communicate them, you don't have to have a target specifically called. There's times when I'm calling a drop, for example, I can't see what's going on. My Atlas might be switched over on the side, and I don't have that avenue. So it's up to my other teammates to be shooting the target that they know they should be shooting and working together on that. One thing you can do, I mean, you know, are you going to shoot a side torso first on a certain mechs or not? You know, if they're an XL mech, you might make those decisions. So you want that. You just have to have really good team communication. And but you know, the other thing that you do is I say, you know, shoot targets of opportunity, and if you don't know who to shoot, shoot who your rest of your teammates are shooting.
JC, new pug player, looking to join a competitive team. What should they know about ECM and how it's used in competitive matches? What are the key fundamentals you think someone looking to raise their game should know?
I think that first of all, that you know, that they need to understand that it's not like this thing that's the end of the world. I don't know. I feel like a lot of, not all, but some pug players would be coming into a competitive group with this mindset that, you know, ECM can be very negative. I think that there's a lot of tendency, certainly with ECM, that in a lot of matches, people are just going down into brawling range because they don't, you know, their mindset is, okay, so I can't see my target. I can't see my red box. So I know he's coming for me. I don't know which way he's coming. I'm going to have an Atlas DDC coming up behind me any second. I'm so scared. I mean, you just got to get them, you know, away from that. You don't need to use, you know, frickin' 6 SRM 6 A1s just to do anything against ECM. I mean, you do. I mean, we've been playing matches, and I'm pretty freaking sure that other teams have been doing the same. Like, we've been running 22-22 setups against teams taking trollolol fucking ECM bum rushers who just want to go and stand in your cap, and they're like, haha, we win. I mean, you can beat them undertonned. You've just got to, you've just got to use common sense. I mean, a little bit like what Mythos was saying. Like, you're not always, the DC's not always going to be able to go, flashy red box alpha, shoot him, and everyone sees flashy red box alpha. But if, it's about players stepping up and saying, okay, so I know, like, what is going to be the target? Like, what's the priority target here? Making their own decisions. And if everyone is on the same level, and if everyone kind of is drilled enough and there's enough cohesion, I would expect to see people just hitting the same stuff. I mean, look at where your friends are firing. Look at where they're shooting at. It's not hard to switch your fire and focus fire, but people just have to get out of the mentality of the red box syndrome. You can do it, but you have to just break away from that mentality.
I think going back to the question of PUG players wanting to join a competitive team, and what do you want to, what should they know about ECM? Just heading back to that question real quick. One of the main things, and I think it travels more than just ECM, but do not be scared. Yes, you're seeing a mech that does not have your flashy red box, but it does not matter. It's still there. You should know, okay, I cannot target him, but I should be hitting CT or cockpit or legs or whatever else I have a good, clear shot on. I think so much of this game actually does go back to, you cannot be scared. Your mech could be shaking all over the place. You're getting streaked. You're getting AC2'd. You're just cockpit getting rattled like crazy. It does not matter. You've got to be able to remain in control of your mech. You got to be able to still take that shot, because otherwise you are essentially useless to the rest of your team.
Absolutely, and I have to say, taking from your point. Sorry, I was just reading the.
Just saw that too.
Yeah. Separated at birth. Yeah. Sorry. The issue of being scared is a valid point, and the whole issue of being psyched out, as it were, by things like ECM. Before that, it was LRMs, and also in the 8v8 matchmaker, as JC pointed out, there are going to be times you're taking the 2-2-2-2 drop deck, and I'd probably say that our last Steel Jaguar EU practice session, we did about 5-6 matches on with 8-man matchmaking. I believe you were with us for most of them, Dale. And most of those matches we came up against were coming up against 8 Atlases, and we won, I think, all of them except for one, which was just bad positioning on our part. And it does come down to that unit cohesion, that element that your pilots need to be able to think for themselves. They need to be able to combat that fear of certain weapon systems and certain size mechs. It is daunting when you come up against an invisible Steiner recon lance of Atlases, and your pilots need to be prepared for that and not panic about it. It's certainly an issue. Magician, what other things do you think that the newer players looking to join these competitive teams should be aware of?
Well, one thing with ECM is it can make you be a terrible player, and because and especially with the Raven. Okay, I started playing the Raven with ECM, and it was making me worse of a player because you have the sense of invulnerability, and you can get out of shit that you could never get out of before. And so you'll just go up and I still do. I'll run through the whole freaking team with my Raven, shooting at them and get out barely touched. But you jump into another mech and you start with that kind of mindset, and you're going to get destroyed. So once some things come in, some little balanced things come in, I think it could be a really bad effect on a player if they based on the ECM. So when you're playing the ECM, you don't want to play it like you're invisible. You want to play it intelligently, and you can play it more aggressively than before, but you don't want to don't push it too far, or else you're just going to end up getting beat against the organized players. So when you're jumping in, going from open games to more organized games, you really have to think about, hey, you know, these other people are good on the other side, and they're going to be trying to beat me and trying to counter me, so I can't just play the same way that I've been playing against unorganized people.
Absolutely. Has anyone got any other final tips for using ECM?
There was one thing I just wanted to add, and I feel like at the moment it's so easy to just get drawn into like this sense of false security to just, you know, you can take, and this is more of a case with the 8v8 situation with no sort of balancing, that you can take whatever you want and it's, you know, it's hilarious, but we know that that isn't going to last. We know that's going to be gone in a couple of weeks. You know, I think that I know I'd rather go out there with a 22-22 setup or something similar and face off against, you know, fucking 8 Atlases with ECM or whatever, win or lose, because, you know, I'll be a better pilot for it. My team will be better for it than just sitting there relying on, you know, a system that is not broken, but it can be taken advantage of and it's going to be taken away from you. So, I mean, while it can be trolltastic, you know, you need to ask yourself, am I really making, you know, is this making my team better? Is this making me better as an individual? Or should I be taking, you know, less tonnage? Should I be thinking about, you know, certainly if you're a RunHotorDie team, like, apart from the troll value, like, why would you want to be playing every night with fucking a shitload of DDCs? And because, you know, you can't take them in a league match, you know, so you're better off just sort of pushing yourself and taking those setups, and I think it just makes you a better pilot for it.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Okay, guys, I think we're going to close up on that subject. We've been on for about just under an hour, I think. We call it a short break because we still have a few things to catch up on. Dale is going to talk to us about the importance of streaming. Oh, Christ, have we been on for that long? Blimey.
Yep.
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Dale is going to talk to us about the importance of streaming to MWO generally. I hope you prepared your discussion points, Dale. And and we are going to have a quick roundup on the Run Hot or Die League. Mechwarrior is going to run through that, and we've got a couple of bits on who's on the league and what we're expecting on the timetable. So, guys, we have a 2-minute break, and we will catch you after. Just switch it over. Okay, there we go. Okay, guys, welcome back.
Oh, apparently can't hear runs.
Yeah, I've sorted it all out.
Okay.
Hello, my dulcet tones. Terry Wogan of the MWO world. Welcome back to part 2 of the Run Hot or Die podcast, and we're going to switch over to Dale. Dale, you have got some interesting points about streaming and the importance of streaming with MWO as a new startup game. Let's hear them.
I wouldn't consider them interesting. When you're talking about streaming, you're talking about Mechwarrior Online. It's definitely something that is important to the growth of the game, and I think to helping out new players, and not only helping out new players, but just having a good time with everybody. Because when you look at other games, basically you want to be able to spread the word as much as possible, and that's why I at least try and stream as much as I possibly can. Because the more times I'm on, the more time it has a chance for Twitch to pop up and say, hey, what's this game, for some random person on Twitch, and you check it out and you add new people to the game. I think it's definitely important for the growth of the game to be able to access new players that way. I mean, sure, Mechwarrior Online, PGI does their own advertising on other websites. They're trying to do their own spread, but as a player base, it's definitely, I want to see more people play this game. So it's something that I do out of my own time, of being able to help new players out, help people get interested in the game as much as I can. And going back to helping new players out, as I said, there's no instruction manual for Mechwarrior Online. So when you can get down to it, what you really want to do, at least for me, I'm not saying every stream has to be this way, but what I would love trying to do is if anybody has a question, I always try and answer it, because there's so many things to this game that you either know how it works or you have no clue how it works. Because you could be like, how do I move forward? Well, you've probably figured out with W pretty quickly, but unless you've played an FPS before, or unless somebody's told you, you haven't got a clue. How do I target it? It's just so much to this game that you don't know until somebody tells you, or until you figure it out through half a dozen forum threads.
Magician, what do you feel? Are you finding the streams that are going up on Twitch useful? Do you think they're providing some real content for people who are new or even experienced players of the game? Do you think there's value in people watching these streams?
Yes. Well, I think streaming is one of the most important things to developing a gaming community, making people more interested in a game, developing, especially on the competitive side. I think it's one of the most important parts. And as for the information people can get, you can learn a lot watching a good player, especially in this game. I mean, if to say Counter-Strike, right? Seeing how, say, an opper sets up can really help you learn how to play. And the same thing with this. Seeing how a person maybe is working with their Gaussapult, or how they're exactly running their Raven, can teach you a lot. Right now, unfortunately, I was looking the other day for people who were streaming, and I couldn't find anybody at that time really that was streaming. So I don't know if for a while there people were streaming it fairly often. I don't know if people have stopped for whatever reason, or just less people that are streaming at the moment. But I think the more people that do it, the more people that make their stream interesting, talking about it, helping out other players, the better it'll be, and the better off the game community will be.
JC, what do you think about it? Is streaming something that interests you, watching some of the other players?
Yeah, I've watched quite a few people playing Mechwarrior on Twitch, streaming, and not just streaming, but there's quite a few people as well that post very regularly videos on YouTube, and it can be really entertaining from different perspectives. I mean, hilariously funny, or it can be really serious, and it can be just really interesting. I mean, I really enjoy watching videos of teams playing and just seeing it from both perspectives, because it's just entertaining, and on a level that's just interesting for me as a competitive gamer playing Mechwarrior Online. It's just, we as gamers playing this game, we want to watch that stuff as well. And that's why I would like to see, better spectating and stuff like that, because I think this game is a fantastic game to be streamed because there's so many intricacies, right? It's not just there's a lot of depth, and like the others were saying, there is a lack of information. And I think it would be a really good way for new players to go on people like Dale's stream, because Dale communicates quite a lot with the people that hang out, and I'd say he's built up a pretty good following at this stage. And it just brings value, not just to the game, but I think it helps build the community as well.
I mean, Dale, why do you think there's not that many people streaming MWO? As Mephos mentioned, I used to see a lot of people streaming, and it seems to have died off a little bit. And to an extent, I think Dr. Salt said in the chat there, perhaps people are a little bit scared about the complexity, and a lot of people don't like to stream at a game unless they're really, really good. Do you think that is something that's putting people off from streaming, or do you think it's something else?
I think we've seen, at least on Twitch, I'm not sure about other streaming sites, but at least on Twitch, whenever the NDA got dropped, there was a bunch of people on streaming. Whenever open beta hit, there was a bunch of people on streaming. So you're still getting these waves of people coming in, but it's what you're seeing now is just people who have stuck with it. And sometimes you don't always have people that are able to stream consistently at consistent times. And I think another issue that a lot of people are having is performance-wise, yeah, it's taxing enough to be able to play Mechwarrior online, and then to be able to stream it on top of that requires some very high-end computers that are able to do that and still play at a decent FPS. Um, as far as the complexity concerned, I do see, I feel the exact same way about not streaming a game unless, I know exactly what I'm doing. Like, I tried playing StarCraft 2, could not do it. I cannot wrap my head around that game. I tried streaming it, and it's just, I feel bad whenever I'm trying to stream it, and I know I'm that bad, and it's like, I don't understand why anybody, I'm not that much of a cult personality to draw people in to watch the game alone.
It's all about actions per minute in StarCraft 2. Just spam the mouse button, you'll be fine. That's how the Koreans do it.
I think we'll see more Twitch streams coming up over time. We'll still have big hits. As soon as Community Warfare hits, I guarantee you we'll have Mercor A through Double Z streaming their matches for taking over planets. So I think you'll see a lot of activity as soon as we get Community Warfare and as soon as we get official quote unquote launch. But I think you'll also see it over time as people learn the intricacies of the game, and they can better communicate what those intricacies. As soon as you get people understanding, what they're doing in the game, you're going to see them more willing to stream it. And as soon as we get some better performance, I know they're working on lower-end systems, being able to play the game better. As soon as you see some performance increase, I think it'll help as well. I think it's something that's going to develop over time. It's still in its infancy.
I mean, one of the things I'm a big watcher of YouTube. I'm a particular follower of the Yogscast and Total Biscuit and a lot of the TGS YouTube channels. And one of the things I've noticed is that not many of these big YouTubers at the minute have picked up on MWO, or if they've picked up on it, certainly haven't been playing it or showcasing it in to any real great degree. And in fact, I think it was in the last TGS podcast that Total Biscuit said one of the reasons for that is because of the state of the game at the minute, and just he was reluctant to play it because he didn't feel that the game was in a state ready enough to showcase it. Do you think that is one of the reasons why perhaps it hasn't got as wide a coverage on some of the big YouTubers, the big Twitch streamers channels?
I think I can kind of see where that sentiment's coming from. I can agree with it to a certain extent. What I think we'll see on some of the bigger YouTube channels, some of the bigger coverage of it will come if we can get a later on down the road. It's definitely not a priority for PGI, but I think you'll get the coverage for it once you start supporting it more. As soon as we get a spectator mode, a proper spectator mode, being able to free roam, free cam around the map, looking at the view from battle from different viewpoints. As soon as you get that, you're going to see a lot more people interested in it, because suddenly you can take an entirely nether perspective on the battlefield as opposed to being locked into the first-person perspective that your players seeing.
So, Magician, do you want to add some points onto that?
Well, I just want to say, I think once we get the rating system in, it might motivate people to stream more, or it also helps that, you can say, hey, I'm a 2200 level player, check out my stream. That's something else that you can draw people in, and people might try to do that. Because right now, we don't have enough viewers that if you're streaming MWO exclusively, you can't exactly be making a profit on your viewers yet, unfortunately. But as the game develops and as it gets more competitive, especially when they add private matchmaking, I think we'll see a lot more streaming going on. My preference for RunHotorDie League is that people will stream their matches if possible, but it's a trade-off, right? If you're streaming, you're taking a 10, say 5 or 10 frame hit, especially if you're playing a faster mech, that can make a big difference in a tight battle. So you might not want to stream, and also with the upload, it's taxing on your upload, and you got to have a decent upload as well. So yeah, I think it's got it. I mean, I hope we get more, but there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things I think that need to happen before this game becomes as stream friendly as most viewers would prefer.
I mean, I think again, as Dale said earlier, one of the things that perhaps needs to be looked at, and not yet because of again some of the issues with the state of the game or whatever else, is a valid spectator mode. And I think if you can shoutcast matches, it's certainly something myself and JC are very interested in, is the ability to shoutcast matches from different perspectives. But I think a lot of teams, you know, before we get that spectator mode, I think a lot of teams are reluctant to post up their footage of matches because, to an extent, they're scared of showing some of their team tactics and their team builds and things like that. JC, do you think that's perhaps fair?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't be surprised if that isn't a factor, you know, going on in some people's minds. I mean, I know I can't. I mean, the way the game is at the moment, and certainly with my computer, I mean, there's just no way I couldn't do it any which way I want. I can't stream and I can't record videos. Is it something I want to do? Yeah, I mean, I'd be really excited about doing it. We have a couple of guys that do it in WSB, and for the most part, I mean, some of them are public, but they don't make it like a big hoo-ha. Like, I mean, you probably would never stumble across them unless just you were linked to it directly. But then there's, you know, other people that, you know, just sort of share videos between other members and stuff. But I think we'd like to make a push into it in the future. But definitely, I mean, people are going to be able to see things, hear things on comms. Sometimes I guess you do have to take into consideration. I mean, certainly if you've got a really important match coming up, the last thing you want is your opposing team potentially knowing something that could tip the favor in, you know, back towards them. So you do have to be careful a little bit. But really, I think that can be mitigated just by common sense. I mean, you know, be careful what you're showing. If you're developing and doing stuff which you don't want other teams to see, don't make sure you're not streaming or recording it and putting it out there. Just avoid that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, and it's not just things like the streams either, or the YouTube. There's a lot of growth potential for the game from things like obviously this podcast, without too much of a boast, but see the size of my e-peen, right? The Run Hot or Die podcast, the last one, had over 700 views on YouTube. Now, granted, that's not a lot of views compared to some of the big YouTubers or whatever else, but, you know, for a start-up podcast on a perhaps smaller game, that's not a bad following, you know, and I think the more people tap into the idea of entertainment, and again, NGNG has a large following as a podcast, and I think that's certainly a growth area. It's not all about being able to do skill shots at over 1,000 meters in the game and things like that. You know, as Parnage has said in the chat, entertainment quality is certainly a level, and I think that's something that you, Dale, you've managed to achieve very successfully. You know, you talk and engage with your viewers, and you laugh, but it's a genuine praise that I hear from a lot of your viewers, is the fact that you engage so well with many of your viewers, you know, and I think that's something that a lot of potential streamers overlook as a choice when they're streaming or looking to stream. You know, they worry too much about their quality, and they perhaps have a bad attitude with the way they play.
Well, with that being said, at least for me, when I'm streaming, I look at it from the viewer's perspective, and going on to other people's channels too. I'll do the same thing and try and take it from the viewer's perspective and just watching them. Is it worth it to just sit there and watch somebody play the game? For some people, that's all you need. You'll see plenty of streams work very successfully off of that, of just they'll just sit there, play the game, not really do anything else except play it, and that's all they ever do. For me, I really like engaging with people, and like especially if they're playing, because I'd love to ask questions, especially if I see something that I haven't seen before in a game, and it's like, well, why did you do that, or what was the point of taking, like, you know, you took a medium laser instead of a medium pulse laser? Why would you do that? And with that setup, with you know, so what build are you running with that? I I'd much rather engage with people that way and be like, well, I took it because of this and this, and learn from it, instead of just sitting there and trying to figure it out on my own. I find it much more entertainment value out of being able to interact with the person who's streaming, as opposed to just sitting there and watching.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of technical issues that come with streaming as well. We talked about the stress that it does put on a CPU, to a certain extent your GPU as well. What are some of the technical problems you have when you're starting to set up? What does a potential streamer need to get going?
For Mechwarrior Online, you're going to need a really good CPU. I mean, there's no way around it. The game is already incredibly CPU intensive until we can get DX11. Your graphics card is going to matter a certain amount. Your RAM should be well above the recommended system specs 8. I'd recommend 12 or 12 plus. Yeah, but your CPU is really where the magic is going to happen with streaming, because Mechwarrior Online is already incredibly CPU intensive. The most intensive part of your computer that gets worked, coincidentally, when streaming is your CPU. So if you do not have one of the latest generation CPUs, you're not going to be able to do it in any decent quality. Apart from that, if you want to be able to stream in higher qualities as opposed to just 360p or 480p or whatever, if you want to get up into HD with 720 and 1080, you need to have a good upload. I actually went and upgraded my internet just because I wanted to stream Mechwarrior Online. Because if you want to stream in a high quality, you have to have a high upload, because otherwise it's just going to be incredibly choppy and not look good whatsoever. You'd better off streaming in lower quality. With that being said, if you can't do the high quality, I'd still highly encourage people to stream, because you never know who's going to tune in and stick around for a little bit, because you can try and it might be a lower quality, but it's still going to be pretty good. As far as what you would need upload speed for 1080p, I'd recommend at least 3 megabit, 4 megabit dedicated upload. So you're looking at having a 5 or 6 megabit upload normally.
Magician, what do you look for when you're looking at streamers on Twitch? What engages you as a viewer?
Well, I just want to add something on what Dale said. Is also capture cards will help you out a lot if you can afford those. They're about they range around $200, and basically you can either run it on the same system or you can run it on a secondary system. Many of the professional people who do streaming or otherwise do some recording, such as robots and stuff, they'll have 2 computers set up, and they do a capture card into the other computer, and the other computer does the actual uploading. That obviously lowers the tax on your system. What I actually look for streaming is I'm looking for somebody who's good. If I'm watching StarCraft, for example, I'm looking for a player who's really good. I like to play Terran, so I'm looking for somebody who's playing Terran. I also like when somebody's willing to interact and talk through it. For example, what I've been watching is D-Muslim, and he'll sometimes talk through what went wrong. Sometimes he'll even do a little bit of replay. Sometimes he'll just talk about what he's seeing and what he scouted and what's going through his mind as the team's attacking. Things like that are really interesting. When it comes to MWO, I mostly, right now, when I'm looking to watch people, I'm mostly looking for people who are doing interesting things, hopefully team games, because that's more interesting for me to watch, is people playing as part of a team than playing solo. And, I watch any of the YouTube videos. I search YouTube probably weekly looking for certain teams to see if they've uploaded any videos on their play, or searching on the boards for those as well. Because I find it interesting. I'm a tactics person. I like watching people play a tactical game, and I like seeing how people are thinking through that. So that's what I like to see. But when it comes down to it, you need people to stream. Like you need the numbers. Like the more people that stream is the better. So even if you don't want to interact, even if you don't have a team to play with, even if you don't have the highest frames per second, it's still useful to stream. And it's useful to record your games, because you can record your games and then you can upload them later to YouTube, or and show your teammates. Like record a game that you played with your team, then go through it. Like watching tape, and figure out where things went right, where things went wrong.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and it's as you mentioned, it's something a lot of StarCraft 2 players certainly do. Is they're review a match afterwards to see where things went right or wrong. And that certainly has value when you're looking from a drop commander perspective with MWO. JC, what about you? Do you look for good quality gameplay, or are you looking for the entertainment value, or do you think there's scope for both?
The first thing I look for is somebody that puts a bra on their head. I think that's massively entertaining. Aside from that, I really enjoy. Yeah, I would pretty much echo what the Magician said. Like, I like to see I really like to see like really good players streaming, and if there's some interaction as well. I think that I mean, like, I've watched Dale's stream, and I've actually was lucky enough to go on there once, and I mean, it's really fun because he's just playing with people as well that watch his stream regularly, and I think that is a really, really great thing. I think there's a lot of people that go to Dale now on his stream, and they're asking questions about how that they can get better at the game, and I just think it's a fantastic thing. But I do really, really love to watch like really good caliber players. It's just really cool to watch them, and then again, just teams. I mean, that would be my biggest thing: watching teams, looking how they're playing, looking how their tactics are going. It's really entertaining.
Magician.
Well, as you can tell from Dale, it's really important to have ducks on your wall. That really brings in the viewers.
That's obviously very, very important.
It drew in meat, though, so it had to be working for at least one person.
And obviously as many in cockpit items as well, because you've got to make it look pretty when you're streaming.
That's actually a really good point, though. Actually, having things like that can make people be like, oh, that's how that looks. That's kind of cool. Or, holy shit, I'm gonna get a aneurysm watching with a light Christmas light. So yeah.
But I mean, you're actually quite right. It is true, and there are streams, mostly the entertainment streams for games like World of Warcraft or whatever, which focus on some of the things like how to get the vanity pets and things like that, or showing off the latest bits of gear. I know, yes, obviously it's something that you pick up from the shop, but anything that makes your stream stand out a little bit or engage a little bit more is something that's going to draw viewers in. Combine that with combine that from I think that's lost on the other two, JC. Sorry, Scope Chat. Combined with interaction as well, with your viewer base, I think that's really something that can help you build up your audience. I mean, Dale, as the experienced streamer here, for those looking to build up an MWO streamers fan base, what are the tips that you would give to anyone who's interested in doing that?
Start now. There's no reason not to. You're looking at, if you want to build up any type of stream, if you want to try and be one of the top streamers for Mechwarrior Online, be best competitive stream, best entertainment stream, whatever, start now. You're looking at a game that has just come out of open beta, I think a little over a month ago, or 2 months. But it's still very much in its infancy. It's still very much, it's an open sandbox. Pick your corner and take it. I mean, come a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to see all these people who started at the beginning, assuming the game takes off, which I very much hope it does, and I'm trying in every way I possibly know how to, especially with my stream, of trying to make it as entertaining and interesting as possible, because I really do want this game to succeed. You're going to have a year from now, 2 years from now, there's no room left. You try and start up a stream, you can build up a following, but you're never going to be able to compete unless you are just that godly of a streamer. You're gonna have a very hard time competing with the people who have been here since the beginning, have built up a ridiculous following. You're looking at the people who are consistently, like, you go on StarCraft 2, League of Legends, you're seeing the same streams, the same people at the top of the most viewed list, and how you get there is you start now.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I think that's probably a really, really good point to bring up for people interested. You can draw that comparison with the recent rise in Dota 2 streamers and shoutcasters, most of them, the ones that have risen to the top, are the ones that started when Dota 2 immediately started with the open beta on Steam, and they very much echoed the sentiment. It's most games reach a saturation point. Games like Minecraft and StarCraft 2, there's a saturation point that gets reached where there are just too many, and you'll never get noticed amongst the crowd. If you want to get noticed, playing MWO, now is the time, and you can find your niche, whether it's high quality gameplay or whether it's entertainment. You'll find it now, and I think that's something that people who are a little bit reluctant about doing MWO should really bear in mind, because you're not competing against many people for views, put it that way. Okay, any other last points on streaming before we move on? No, we're all good. Outstanding. Right, well, we're going to switch up to our last bit, which is the Run Hot or Die League. And I've spent a great deal of time preparing a Gucci video. I'm very impressed with myself. So hopefully the magician will enjoy what I produce quite as much as I do. But magician, do you want to just run us through the state of the league at the minute, how things are going, and where we're at with Run Hot or Die League?
Sure. So as some people know, we started the league back up with the week 1 matches, which have been on hold and off and on since open beta, or actually it was since closed beta. Right now, week 1 matches are to be completed by January 15th. This is something that is not what we want to have as standard going on. However, a lot of teams have issues right now with this holiday season, where players are either off from college or are on family travel, or just otherwise aren't going to be able to play as much as they would prefer to have a truly competitive showing. So therefore, week 1 matches, try to finish by January 15th. Week 2 will officially start on January 1st. However, for the similar reason of getting things in timing, there's going to be a 2-week period to get it done. So week 2 matches should also be done by the 15th. All this depends on Phase 3, which, according to the last update that we had from PGI, could come end of December, early January. So we don't know exactly when this is going to be showing up. But so that could change everything once again, and we could go on more delays. And that's what I want to stress. Like, the reason that we started the league back up, and the reason that we're continuing to do this through all these time changes, all these different things that are going on, is because we want to develop the competitive community for MWO, and we also want to show how serious of a group we are at PGI, so we get those features that we need to do the competitive side right. Otherwise, yes, hopefully we can get to week by week matchups and really, follow that along and get through the first season. But we have, we've had 10 or 20 teams out of the 50 or so teams between the North America and the EU divisions have completed their matches. So that's been good.
And in fact, we're going to have a look at the league as it stands initially with the teams on it a minute. But we've had quite a good response from a lot of teams. Somewhere in the region of 40 teams in the North American League, split into 4 divisions, and then sadly only 13 teams for the EU. I'd like to see a stronger EU showing, but it's there's definitely this interest there, I think, and it's positive to see so many people wanting to engage in this, wanting to see the competitive side, and really wanting to take things and making it interesting. There's not the mechanisms in play at the minute by PGI. We're not expecting those mechanisms to be there necessarily at the minute, because obviously the game's still in open beta. But the fact that we've had this community-created league, and there has been such overwhelming support from the community, is a really positive sign. So I'm excited by the potential for the league, and I'm excited to see the matches that are coming up. So Dale, what are you thinking on the league at the minute?
I think I'm definitely really excited to see what's going on with it, with matches getting done, matches getting completed. As Mythos said, we started the league, SJR started the league because there is no competitive scene otherwise. If you, a lot of the competitive players, ourselves included, if we can't get competition somehow, we'll make it ourselves. So I mean, we want to play this game competitively. I want to play it at the competitive level, and that's why we formally. That's why we have the delays right now. Not as bad as the NHL blackout. That's good. But it's mostly it's on game mechanics that aren't quite in yet. We're very aware of that. We know Phase 3 is probably going to come in, muck things up some more. We knew Phase 2 was going to hit or Phase 1 and not let us be able to do 8v8 sync drops. But we want it that bad that we're willing to deal with it and play it when we can. As far as divisions go, I really would like to see a greater EU showing. I think it'll come up over time. I think since PGI is mostly a North American-based company, a lot of their advertising seems to have been hitting North America and not quite reached Europe too much. So I think over time it'll come. 13 teams, though, for a game that's been out of open beta for 2 months is still a really great showing. But as far as the state of the league right now, I'm really happy where it's at right now with teams getting drops done. I understand holidays, pushed it back to the 15th to get drops done, but it's definitely nice seeing the competitive play there and realizing it's always nice knowing you're not alone when you want competitive play out of a game, and a lot of the general discussion is opposition.
I mean, let's switch over to review the league at the minute. And there we can see Division 1. We've got Eridani, Light Pony, obviously the winners of the Run Hot or Die tournament. Night Scorn, Shield Wall of Rattlehaig, the Wolf Spiders are in there, of course. Battleborn Knights, Word of Lotax, Snow Raven, very competitive team. Paragon and the Robinson's Rangers. I mean, Division 1, it's a pretty interesting mix-up there. Potentially some very exciting matches. I'm interested to see if Eridani Light Pony can really pull off what they achieved in the tournament stage. So that's going to be very interesting to have a view. I think Division 1 is going to be a very, very tight matchup. Division 2, Chaos Legion, again, a very, very well-respected team within the community. We've also got Angels of Death, Sky Rangers, Darksabers, Widowmakers, who have set up 2 teams for the league. Lunar Wolves and the Zizu Mercors. I don't actually know very much about Zizu. Haven't really seen very much from them. But again, interesting matchups. We've also got the C Reddit, again, another team that's entered 2 teams. This one is Hoplon and Big Blue Company. ELPCMC, I have no idea who they are. Do you know who they are, Magician?
Which team did you say?
ELPCMC.
I think that's the Eridani Light Pony's second group, and I don't know what the previous
right. Second team there, and obviously we had a Word of Lotax. The Goon Squad's Word of Lotax is actually put in a very strong showing for the league. They have 3 teams. They're also in Division 3 with Bropocalypse now. Our very own North American Steel Jaguars at Division 3. Midnight Suns, Dragoon, Firepower Unlimited, the 10th Solaris Rangers, the Devil Dogs. So again, some interesting matchups there. I'm going to be very interested to see some of the Word of Lotax matches. And then we have the Black Wolves, Antares Scorpions, and Marek Militia. So again, lots of teams involved there. I think 8 teams per division, isn't it, Magician? I think that's
it should be 10.
10? Yes, that's right. Sorry, 7 on the first page and 3 on the second page. I did all this evening. I should remember. So again, lots of exciting matches there. We then have Division 4, Clan Jade Wolf, Bravo Whiskey Charlie, which, correct me if I'm wrong, used to be Black Widow Company before the name change. Blazing Ages, Equestria Royal Guard. I'm kind of disappointed that ERG isn't up against Eridani Light Pony. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a grud match going there between the bronies. We've also got
Scrap.
absolutely. Let's see how much friendship is magic in that matchup. We have Widowmaker's Team 1 in there, the 312 Black Tridents. They used to be 312 Iron Legion, I think it was, something like that. Ironclad Legion. They've changed their name to the Black Tridents, as I found out this afternoon. Murphy's Law, which is a very heavily US military influenced team. So again, some interesting matchups there. And then the European division, we have Angitar Syndicate, the Antari Scorpions EU division, Blazing Aces EU division, BWC EU, again European Light Pony. I know it's up as Eridani, but they are called European Light Pony. And again, you can see it's quite nice to see some of the popular teams putting in quite a strong EU showing here. You know, Chaos Legion, ERG, and again we've got Shield Wall in there. The Sky Rangers, Snow Raven again. Obviously, Steel Jaguars EU, outstanding. I'll be leading those matches. Wolf Spiders yet again, and the fourth Word of Low Tax team, Goon Squad team, the slightly trollishly called Fighting Cocks. I would expect nothing less from Goon Squad team. I'm slightly disappointed they didn't change the grenade in their logo to something a little bit cruder. I would expect more from Goon Squad, to be honest with you. So there we go. That's our league matchup. That's the teams that we're looking. Some interesting matchups there. Is there any team matches you're particularly excited or particularly interested in from what we've seen the division there, JC?
I mean, yeah, I think there's going to be some really interesting matches. I mean, Division 1 looks pretty sexy. I mean, we're up against Snow Raven next, and that's going to be really fun. We haven't played them yet, so we're really looking forward to that. And we'll get to play against ELP as well. That's going to be really good. So, I mean, I'm really excited about it. I think, again, as well with the European side, I mean, there should be some really good matches.
Dale, how are you finding the league at the minute? And there are any matches as a member of the Steel Jaguars North American team that you're particularly looking forward to in Division 3?
Within Division 3, I'm probably always a pleasure facing off against actually all of them, really. I mean, it's nice going against familiar teams, especially. I think the Word of Low Tax team in Division 3 should be an interesting fight. But other than that, I mean, really, there's not a single match that I'm not looking forward to.
Obviously, Magician, strong showing there from a lot of teams. How have you found the community support for the league so far? And what are the matches you're particularly interested in seeing the results from?
Well, first, I'm just interested in seeing where some of these teams come up. I mean, I know some of these teams from the tournament, but there's a lot of teams obviously that weren't in part of the tournament. The tournament was 16 teams, and we have 53 teams combined between the North American EU division, excluding the ones that have two, like Steel Jaguar and Snow Raven, which have one in each. But so I'm really, seeing who's going to show, who's going to surprise people. When it comes to individual matchups in the divisions, yeah, I'm interested in seeing the Wolf Spider and Snow Raven, how that collides. And I'm interested Widowmaker and Jade Wolf. There's a lot of these teams I don't know anything about. Like, I haven't scrimmed against them. I haven't seen them, any videos that they put out or anything like that. So I don't know who they are yet. So that's the interesting thing, like we'll fight Antares. We play 10th Solaris Rangers next. I don't know anything about this team, so it's going to be interesting going against people you don't know, you haven't really seen before. Maybe once I see who's on it, I'll recognize them from some of these open games and stuff. But I'm trying to think. EU division again. There's going to be some really interesting matchups in that. I guess we will see a Brownie match off in that one, so that'll be fun.
Dale, anything to add on to that?
I definitely just want to do a quick little plug-ish. For anybody who is listening, who is part of these members of the teams, as I said, a lot, as Mythos was saying, a lot of these teams, they're up and coming. They haven't made a name for themselves yet, or they have made a name in previous games. They've got to step it up again for Mechwarrior Online. What we highly encourage, especially with the RunHotorDie League, on the official website, RunHotorDie.com, up in that top menu bar, there's Home, Forum, League, blah, blah, blah. The important one that you're in there for, especially for unit leaders, is that chat. There's the RunHotorDie IRC channel. If you actually just hit on that, you should be able to get yourself set up on the website. You don't even need an IRC client. But we'd highly encourage unit leaders just hang out in there. It's meant to be a place where competitive-minded teams can look to find other competitive-minded teams. So just set up scrims, set up friendly matches, chat about things. And I'd highly recommend anybody listening in to check that out, especially if you're a unit leader looking to set up scrims. It's just another avenue available to you.
Damn it, I just tried to post a link in the chat there, it wouldn't let me. Balls. No, absolutely, absolutely. And I would like to very much encourage teams that are facing off against each other in the league, if it is possible for them to fraps it. Obviously, with the provided you have permission from both teams engaging, please do fraps it. Post it up on YouTube. If you want, you can try and send it to us at RunHotorDie, and we're even try and shoutcast it for you, because we really are very keen on. Really, I hate you, JC. You really throw me off every time I'm trying to speak. Yes, ask your parents' permission before you frap. Yeah, make sure that you do fraps these matches. If you want us to shout, I hate you guys.
How do you frap runs?
With a lot of hand cream.
Daily.
Gentleman's literature. Yeah, make sure that you do frap. If you want us to shoutcast it, we would be very, very happy to shoutcast your matches. And I'm personally, and JC mentioned as well, very, very excited about the prospect of shoutcasting matches for teams, and really promoting the whole competitive scene and everything else, and help promote those teams that are engaging in the RunHotorDie League. Some of the competitive footage, getting it out there is a very good way to get people noticed, teams noticed, and getting the. I just hate you guys so much. And getting your team noticed for potential recruits, and helping your recruitment faster. I certainly know Steel Jaguar North America team noticed a very, very big surge in recruits. Enough jokes about surging and growth during fraps. I know where your mind is at.
Oh God! How could you do this to me, Ryan?
SJR North American division experienced a very good growth during the RunHotorDie tournament, and it's a good way of teams getting noticed. So do bear that in mind, and like you say, we'd be happy to shoutcast your matches if you fraps them. Okay, guys, I think unless anyone else has anything to add, any other topics they'd like to discuss, we've been online long enough, I think, and we can probably wrap up today's episode.
Yeah.
The Hobbit's great. Go see that. It's almost as long as this podcast.
Yeah, but theirs is only 3 movies long. That's just weak. We produce this stuff in a week each time, and we're going to have plenty of episodes. We've already done 6.
It's true. It's true.
Okay, well, I guess that just leads me to thank my guests a great deal. JC is my co-host. Thank you very much, JC.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know why I bother sometimes, to be honest with you. The stress you put me under.
Oh, just watch some fraps or something later. You'll feel better.
Thank you very much to our special guest panelist, Dale, taking time out of his busy college schedule and a very busy streaming schedule to join us.
Definitely appreciated. Thank you very much for having me.
It's absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. And of course, thank you to the Magician, one of our regular panelists here at RunHotorDiePodcast. Thank you very much.
It's good times.
And it just leaves me to thank the live stream viewers for a very engaging and interesting chat this week. And it's nice to be able to interact with you guys on the chat. I'm very glad I managed to get the second monitor so I can see what's going on in the chat there. It's great to see. Please do feel free to help promote the show. The more viewers we can get, the better the show will be, and we can have more interesting discussions. As always, we will post this up on YouTube. Probably not tonight because it's nearly 1 a.m. where I am, so you can get stuffed. I'm going to bed. And I will see you all, hopefully, for the next Run Hot or Die podcast. I believe we're doing one next Sunday, or is that too close to Christmas, guys?
I'm good for it.
Don't know. We will see how the schedule goes, because it's the next one should be scheduled for the 23rd. So we'll see how the schedule goes, and we may do one, or we may leave it until the new year with the 6th of January. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I do certainly hope to see you all again. And thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.
Goodbye.